All right, once again, it's Ricky Runnit. This is Ace Master J back in the building. Sorry, we had technical difficulties on my end.
That's okay. So, well, welcome back to the Retro Roundtable. So, like I
episode
said, we're going to
two.
get into it. Yes,
Yes, sir.
episode 2, we're getting into the big 3.
Yes,
Tell them about the big 3 tonight.
I'm so 90s, want me to show proof? I'm 90s like all Helga wanted for Christmas, Radino's Spumoni snow boots. 90s like I dropped a screw in the tuna, like Stoop Kid finally left the stoop. Hallelujah, like rockin' horse, wood chairs, it could get took there. Way back to elementary with scholastic book fairs, field days, meal trays, box lunch with grapes. Every Friday night we went to rent blockbuster tapes. When Ed and Eddie really had us wanting to scam for a quarter. True supporter of the Alice Wonderland.
So the big 3, for those of you who don't know or who didn't grow up watching 90s cable, it'll be Cartoon Network, first and foremost. A lot of you are familiar with that. Nickelodeon, which is one of my personal favorites. Then we have Disney Channel. So all 3 of these channels impacted each and every one of us in some type of way.
Yep, and we're going to get into all of them. But tonight, our first one we're going to start off with, the coin toss, Cartoon Network.
Yes, the big CN. I don't even want to call it CN because it was known as Cartoon Network when we were coming up. So
that's what I'm saying. Trust me. Got my Cartoon Network shirt on tonight. My Bugs Bunny. Hold on, let me get up a little bit. There we go. Pardon the hair.
I should have put on my Cartoon Network shirt, man.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Like I said, that was one of the major channels back in the day, along with Nickelodeon and Disney. Growing up, so there was a lot of different content that would go through that network, and most of it, believe it or not, was actually even before our time.
Way before our time. So it's safe to say the Cartoon Network did originate first before Nickelodeon got its name. I think Nick was still going by Viacom at that time.
Yep.
But either way,
you're right.
They both impacted us. But Cartoon Network itself, from all that I remember, they brought us like the shows that we can't even forget. Some of the shows got revamped. Some of the shows are out on DVD, out on Cartoon Network Plus or whatever app you have on your television. So,
right.
First and foremost, honestly, I want to talk about how Looney Tunes was like a big big impact on Cartoon Network. I wouldn't even know what Looney Tunes was if it weren't for Cartoon Network. But I'm sure they've been running since like the 30s.
Yep, that's where they started, right back in the 30s. In the 30s, they had 3 different channels. I mean, not 3 different channels, 3 different shows that would play. Like I said, I did a little back research. They had Looney Tunes. They had Married Melodies, which was another Warner Brothers classics, and MGM, Metro, Golden.
The one with the lion.
Yes, the one with the lion. They had stuff like Barney Bear, believe it or not. So, like I said, was dated all the way back to the 1930s. Oh, yeah, that was before our parents.
So that tells you right there how ancient it is. They were still gems, though. They were pretty much ahead of their time, from my understanding.
Like I said, because when we were watching them, like I said, it was new to us. So, that's what kind of made it special because, we grew up on, those type of cartoons. And like I said, those were just stuff back from the 30s. As time went on, as each decade came, they started to add more and more shows. Like
Animation
I said,
evolved.
Looney Tunes. Yes. Like I said, Looney Tunes have really kind of set the bar for things for Cartoon Network because, like I said, Warner Brothers, they have a lot of their content that came on through Cartoon Network.
And thank God for that because those shows were like gems. It was like the cornerstone of our 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time lineup. I remember right before I used to have like bath time or whatever we had as kids, bath time, shower time, whichever one you took. It was always, what was the half-hour block that used to come on right before like Tex Avery? It was all Looney Tunes, but they had a specific name for it. I can't even remember off the top of my head. But I used to look forward to that every day.
There was a time block that I remembered. like I said, back in the day growing up, whenever we watched Looney Tunes, they called it the Acme Hour. So,
Acme, that's what it was. That's exactly what it was. Acme Hour.
like I said, yeah, because Acme was the brand, the brand within the show, because everything that they would use came from Acme.
The
Acme
dynamite Wile E.
explosives.
Coyote
Yep.
used.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was a lot
Any
more hidden. So
company.
yeah, the
Yeah,
company.
like I said, any company, Powerhouse was an Acme company. The trucks that would come by that had Acme on the side, trust me, everything within the Looney Tunes world was made by Acme in
If
some way,
Acme
shape,
was a
or
real
form.
company,
So
then the creator of Looney Tunes is like a marketing genius because that's like the perfect strategy. You'll never forget the
that's what
name
I'm
Acme.
saying. We
Acme
got Acme
Acres.
stores out here. Acme Acres. That was the place where they lived.
A
Yep,
lot of
every
people don't
Looney
even know
Tunes
that.
from, yeah, that's what I'm
Acme
saying.
Acres.
And like I said, that was just stuff before our time, like way before our time. Like even our parents grew up watching Looney Tunes and
Man,
whatnot.
it's not even a half of it, man. But if
Trust
you,
me, that's a lot more.
but if y'all
I'm
want to
sorry, go
talk about
ahead.
something more like pushing towards the 80s, 90s, one of my personal favorites. I don't want to get too far ahead and go into my favorites already, but one of my personal
No,
favorites
that's
is
cool.
definitely Johnny Bravo.
Oh yeah, trust me. Now we're really getting into the 90s right there. Trust me. We getting into the cartoon era. Yeah, trust
Cartoon.
me.
That's what started it all. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure Johnny Bravo started off as his own short, but then it got such good reception that it actually got picked up for his for a 2-season series. Whatever. I know one of the creators was Seth MacFarlane, who's actually the creator of Family Guy and American Dad for the newer
Yep. Part of
generation.
the retro roll call. Shout out to, like I said, yeah, Seth MacFarlane, but also shout out to, people don't know this, but Butch Hartman, who
Butch
did
Hartman,
the
Fairly Odd
Fairly Odd.
Parents. Yeah.
Yep, he was a producer for Johnny Bravo. That was one of the shows that he had helped create. So again, shout out to him too.
That had to be a dope team. I can just imagine them in the studio together, just bouncing ideas off of each other. Because Fairly Odd Parents is hilarious. That's why I can't wait for our Nick segment.
Trust me,
But
like I said, we got plenty of content to cover from every channel. So, like I said, we'll probably be popping in and out from different channels
most definitely.
right here. Because believe it or not, since you mentioned Nickelodeon, I didn't even know this until I started researching for this roundtable that Looney Tunes, I mean, of course, Tiny Toons did a
Oh yeah,
stint
yeah,
on
yeah.
Nickelodeon, but Looney Tunes itself actually did a stint on Nickelodeon. And I thought, wow, that kind of blew my mind because I never imagined, you know, them being on Nickelodeon since they
I
were
didn't
such
either.
a standpoint for, Cartoon Network,
When did this happen?
kind of. Doing research, it was somewhere between like either the 70s or the 80s where they had a stint on on Nickelodeon where, yeah, Looney Tunes would play on that channel. I was like, wow,
Yes,
I guess you learn something new every
you
day.
do. I really didn't know that. That's wild. I mean, I could see it
Trust
happening,
me.
but I just didn't picture it because it was like the cornerstone of Cartoon Network. It was pretty much what Cartoon Network centered its focus on at one point in time. Sorry, I got a cat behind me.
No, that's okay. Yeah, trust me. They had plenty of different types of animals. They had cats, Sylvester. They had birds like Tweety,
Tweety,
rabbits like Bugs Bunny, ducks like Daffy Duck,
coyotes.
foghorn. Yep. Road runners.
Matter of fact, I
He
think
was
the
one of my
only human
personal favorite
characters, oh,
characters.
Roadrunner was dope. Even though he didn't really have too much dialogue, it's just that meep meep that always killed me.
Yeah, trust me.
You
That was
notice the
my,
ones who can't talk, they have like the funniest roles.
yeah,
That's what it feels like
trust
to
me.
me. I think the only
Yeah,
human
Road
characters
Runner.
on Looney Tunes was Yosemite Sam and Elmer Fudd.
Yep. And Granny.
Oh, Granny too. Yeah, you can't forget about Granny.
Yeah, I mean, they did interact with live characters and actual human beings, but none really stayed with the staple set group with, Porky Pigs, the Sylvesters, and You know, the Tweeties and Bugs and Daffy.
They
You
were just
know,
like
besides Elmer Fudd,
Yosemite
yeah, and
Sam.
Yosemite Sam.
It's like
Because
the other
trust me,
humans
yeah,
are background recurring characters or something like that.
yeah, basically, like, I mean, I'm trying to think, like, a little side note, Elmer Fudd, before he started off as a hunter, he was more kind of a guy, he was kind of based off of a character from beforehand called Mr. Egghead. I don't know if you remember him, but
I don't remember that.
from
Mr.
time
Egghead.
Mr. Egghead had kind of evolved into who we know now as, you know, the hunter Elmer Fudd that had the Wascal Wabbit
Right.
kind of, you know, before he
Cool.
kind of got into his dialogue. You know, that was just a little fun fact I learned from another show that used to do Looney Tunes info, which was called Toonheads, which was another time block,
I remember Toonheads
believe it or
also.
not.
Toonheads is pretty dope. You know, that reminds me when we
They,
spoke about Mr. Egghead and Elmer Fudd. They did like a similar process for creating the character for Hank Hill of King of the Hill. So his name
right.
used to be Tom Anderson, and he was on Beavis and Butthead. And then I guess the character somehow got so popular that it wasn't a spinoff, but they based the character of Hank Hill off of Tom Anderson. So it's kind of like the same thing with the
Like I said,
Egghead.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty
and wouldn't
cool.
you know it, they end up on Cartoon Network,
Yep, blowing
Adult
up.
Swim. That's what I'm saying. Hank
Are we
Hill,
talking about
King of
Adult
the
Swim
Hill.
too? Because it
Me,
was
I
a
was
part of
kind of
Cartoon
just
Network.
going, yeah, I was just going through anything focused with Cartoon Network. I was just going to go by decade, really, because, you know, like I said, there's a lot of stuff. MGM not only had Barney Bear, who was, again, a Tex Avery, another
Tex
retro
Avery.
roll call. Shout out to Tex Avery
I can't wait for him. One of
right
my
there.
favorite animators. Big
Like I
shout outs to
said,
him.
yep. Yes, we're going to have plenty of retro roll call. That's going to be its own segment, so stay tuned for that soon, where we
Coming
can dive in
soon.
a little deeper.
Oh yeah.
Yes, with that. But like I said, yeah, we had Tex Avery had created stuff like Barney Bear and other MGMs such as Droopy Dog.
Droopy. That's
Yep,
one
they
who's
had the
still
Droopy
relevant to this
series.
day. People still love Droopy.
I was actually watching them not yesterday. Actually, it was yesterday. I was watching clips of Droopy, and his catchphrase was, "You know what?"
Mm,
And it would always follow something that really, because he was very monotone.
He really
That's what
was.
really kind of played it off. Because, you know, anytime within his cartoon, he would either be interacting with some type of animal that was, you know, some kind of ruckus, like a fox that was smart that, you know, every dog was trying to catch for a reward, or different other characters such as a dog that was always trying to do better, and the wolf that was always trying to get his sheep that he would sheep guard. Because I remember the wolf, because he always had the whistle, you know, the
Yeah.
I can't really whistle that well, but you know, he was always so chill. That was one thing about it. No matter what happened to him, no matter how much Droopy ever outsmarted him, he would always, you know, he always kept his cool and just kind of, you know something, man?
He
That
was
right
like
there is a pretty smart dog. Like, even when his face got blown up, you know, he never stopped his whistle and he never lost his cool,
he
which was
really
actually
didn't.
pretty cool.
I think he should be listed as
Yeah,
one of the most chillest cartoon characters of all time because he really was chill.
that's okay. I was a little jealous of him because of how, you know, how he could just keep his cool like that. You know, if I could rap like that in my real life, you know, life would probably be a lot easier for
Yeah,
me.
I'm
So,
saying, man. I'm telling you. Just living life so carefree like that.
yeah, like I said, Tex Avery did a lot of good cartoons that will probably be brought up. But like I said, another good one that was made for MGM, Tom and Jerry. One of
Oh,
the top ones
definitely.
right there, Tom and Jerry,
Definitely.
Cat and Mouse. That was a transcending kind of duo that really revolutionized cartoons. They're right up
They
there personally in my opinion, with the Looney Tunes, because everybody has heard of Tom and Jerry in some
Exactly.
shape or form,
And so many
living in
cartoons
America
have
or
followed
even.
that same exact formula that Tom and Jerry has set, like the standard from cartoons from then. The whole cat and mouse scene, it was replicated in so many different ways. Yeah, shows like,
Hmm.
what's a good example? Because I think there were other cartoons.
Simpsons.
Simpsons. Oh yes, Itchy and
They
Scratchy.
had Itchy and Scratchy, the
Mhm.
Tom and Jerry of what, the 80s, so to speak, when the Simpsons came out.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Even
Cat and
Cat
mouse was
Dog.
always a thing.
Cat Dog was even
Yeah, they had the
or
blue
yeah.
mouse. That's what I'm
Winslow. They
saying.
had
Even,
Winslow. Yeah.
yeah, jumping from another channel, trust me, they influenced us a lot. And anytime you would ever hear a parody on a different show, it was always a cat and mouse that would always try to, outwit
Outsmart
each
each other.
other.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's the thing. And like you said earlier, they never said one word. Well, Tom spoke every so often, but it's rare. But it was always a cartoonish kind of voice and
Or like
whatnot. But like I
the
said,
is you
in
is or is
general,
you ain't my baby.
oh my God,
it
that song was a classic.
was.
I actually got it down here in my library, a volume set of Tom and Jerry and Looney Tunes. So trust me, like I said, I watch this stuff on the regular.
Speaking of
Like I said,
which,
one,
I remember the first cartoon I ever even seen, as far as
what
Cartoon
was
Network.
it?
It was, I believe it was Merry Melodies. And it was about an owl who wanted to be a singer.
Al
So,
Johnston.
Al
I
Johnson.
know who you're
I was like,
talking about.
yeah, that's a
I
classic
just
right there.
watched him the other day. He's actually in this DVD that I have in my library. They based that off of an actual singer who did jazz because, jazz back in that time in the 1930s, 1940s is kind of what we have today with hip hop, rock, and pop. So, his father wanted him to sing, more classical kind of
Stiff music, uppity.
but he always wanted to have his swinger, so to speak, because
I
he
like
loved the
singing
singer
about the Moona and the
about your
tuna.
moon and your junior and the springer. I love the singer
About
about
a
the
sky
sky
or
of
blue
blue and
or
the
two
T
or
or two
two.
and the singer to a swinger to a I love you. I'm telling you, I just watched this it's like yesterday because, like I said, I keep a collection of them back behind me.
And the
So
song is so catchy. But what I really like the most is how at the end the father was even okay with it. And he started to just grasp the idea of
yeah,
his son being like an
yeah, that's
upbeat
what I'm
singer.
saying. Yeah, because they all, because he was auditioning and whatnot, and he was about to lose because he changed the song because his father didn't approve of him singing jazz and whatnot.
That
So
was the
yeah,
funniest part when the song would change.
yeah, it would just come off like I don't know, I don't
And he
know,
looked miserable
I don't know.
singing
I'm
it
just
too.
making it up. No, he always
That's
had
along the
that
lines
look.
of what it was. He's like, oh, why am I here?
Exactly. Trust me, you know what it's like growing up. You always
Oh my
had your
god.
parents always had something set for you, and
You didn't want to follow that
you
path.
wanted your own thing. But as
Yeah,
soon as they came, you had to switch it up real quick. Just so you don't get that. You don't get that strap.
exactly. It reminds me of Courage the Cowardly Dog in a way, even though it's not even remotely similar. The father reminded me of Eustace, and the mother was kind of more laid back, kind of like Muriel.
You know what? Yeah, because that reminds me of some other Looney Tune characters. Because that kind of brought me back to the Three Bears. They weren't major characters, but they did have a couple segments with Bugs Bunny. They had the Papa Bear, who was short-tempered, very small. They had Mama Bear that was kind of quiet, mundane, laid back. And then they had Baby Bear Jr. that was big, goofy, and loud. And, he messed up everything.
He
And,
did.
Papa Bear would always, give him his lick, so to speak. So,
He used to smack him upside the head, didn't he?
yep,
That's
he
what I
punched
remember.
them,
Yeah,
smacked them, kicked them, yeah. And always, Junior! Just,
June. They tried it real far from the original Three Bear story. 'Cause I don't never remember the
yeah, that's
baby
what
bear getting
I'm saying.
smacked.
I'm saying, not in my lifetime, at least not my nursery school.
That's
But
domestic
yeah, that's what
abuse
I'm
where I come
saying.
from.
Exactly. Animal cruelty is a felony nowadays. Like I said, back then, even on television, everybody got hurt.
Man,
Tom, Jerry, Droopy Dog, Looney
every
Tunes, you name it.
now let those shows play today in this generation. Papa Bear would have CPS card on him. There ain't no way
That's
that
what
would have
I'm
flew.
saying.
I'm telling you.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, that's another thing. As the decades went on, violence kind of minimized, I should say. Except, well, actually, when
Slapstick.
cartoon picked back up, there was different. It was more
Yeah.
like zanier type violence. Like get hit
Yeah,
with a mallet.
slapstick.
Yeah, slapstick.
Yeah, hammer space. I
Mhm.
actually researched that. It's called hammer space when they pull that object from thin air from behind them, like
Oh,
they
there
pulled it
was a
out of their
name for that?
pocket. Yeah, I didn't know that. I researched that. It just came up one day, and I was looking on Urban Dictionary, believe it or not, and they defined it as hammer space when you pull an object
Out
that you
of
want to
thin
smack
air.
somebody over the head with.
Oh,
Trust me, yeah, because that's what I would love to do. I can't imagine what I would keep in hammer space just off the top of my head. Like that's just why I was always into cartoon because I would love to have something like that just handy if
just
I need
defy the
it.
law
Just
of
go in the
gravity
hammer.
and just.
Yes, pull out from hammer space. Look here, me and this rifle. Now I done told you what the sale price was at the store. Now you got to buy two to get the sale price. Now do we have to go over, or do I got to use this boomerang and knock you clear across the store? Just stuff like that.
That would be amazing, bro. I'm surprised
Yeah,
that there's like a name for it. It's been used in every cartoon series. Johnny Bravo.
that's
It's
what
been
I'm
used in
saying.
Dexter a time or two. Of course,
Yeah,
Ed, and
trust me.
Eddie.
They were like what the kings of hammer space, especially Ed.
Oh yeah, definitely. He was the
Yeah,
target.
trust me.
Oh my god.
Well, yeah, I'll put it like this: if he wasn't pulling out something random, he was getting hit with something random. But yeah, as you can see, because that's kind of how they built from back then. They would use that type of format to help build the cartoons that we grew up with that were actually debuting in that time. You know, another big name that it came a little later, going into the 50s and 60s, a lot of cartoons from Hanna-Barbera.
Hanna-Barbera. Now that's the man to talk about right there.
That's what I'm saying. Another one that's going to be on the roll call, Hanna-Barbera. Those two were a team that really helped revolutionize television.
Mainly
Top
known
cartoon
for
off the bat,
Flintstone, top cartoon.
Flintstones,
Flintstones, the Jetsons, Yogi Bear.
Jetsons.
Um,
Yep, Yogi Bear.
who
Yogi
else?
Bear. Augie Doggy, Doggy Daddy,
Doggy Daddy, Hong Kong
Pixie
Fooey.
and Dixie. Yep,
Man, list goes on and on. But the one thing I noticed
Snoops,
about
Flapper.
Hanna-Barbera,
Mm-hmm.
them too, but his style kind of revolutionized the 70s style because you can tell if it's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon by the art style. And his art
Yes,
style is
that's what
definitely
I'm saying.
something different. It brings you that, even though it was in the 70s, it still gave you that nostalgic feeling of like being in the 50s.
But
And
yeah, if you compared it to, like I said, with Warner Brothers style with Looney Tunes versus, Hanna-Barbera, you can see the
oh,
differential,
clearly,
kind of how
clearly.
it picked up for that time. So I get what you're saying. Like one of my favorites from Hanna-Barbera, outside the Flintstones, Jetsons, Top Cat.
Top Cat, he was kind
Top
of like a
Cat.
slept
That was
on guy.
one of, that's what I'm saying. He should be in one of our unsung episodes.
And for those of you who
Because,
don't know, Top Cat is the yellow cat. That's all you need to know right there. And you'll be able to pick him out of a lineup.
Yellow cat with a top
With
hat
the
that
top.
was purple. And he was the leader of the gang, so to speak. He had his
He had a
different
little
cats.
funky little theme song.
Yep. I know. And that's the thing about Hanna-Barbera cartoons. The ones that did have the theme song, you could tell by the beat and the melody that would play behind it. Looney Tunes had that sound.
They did.
Yeah.
They
The
did.
Flintstones. Everybody knows, Flintstones.
Meet the Flintstones. Everybody
Yeah, the
knows that.
Montessori thing. Yeah, everybody. And then the live action movie came out with John Goodman in '94.
Oh, that was a classic.
That's what I'm saying. Trust me, we'll definitely get into that too.
Shout out
You
to John
know,
too, because he did a really good job as Fred. He played that part
that's
so
what I'm
well,
saying.
voice and
Yeah,
all.
trust me, there's definitely going to be a lot of roll call for us when we do specific episodes, and and
Oh,
just the
most
roll
definitely,
call in general. Trust me.
most
Like I
definitely.
said, live action animators, Tex Avery, Chuck Jones, people like that.
That
you
boy
know.
Chuck
And that's
Jones.
just, like I said, just Cartoon Network. There's so many, again, from Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, trust me.
Oh, we forgot to mention Scooby Doo. Scooby Doo is one of the biggest series that put Hanna Barbera on the map.
Hanna-Barbera, yeah, that's my other. Oh, yeah, I want to do a quick shout out for this. Next month is September, so I was talking it over, and I
Yeah,
want to do Scooby-Doo
that's
September,
gonna be dope.
where every week or so we're going to talk about Scooby-Doo classics, characters, maybe specific episodes, different. It's going to be the month of September dedicated to Scooby. So
Yes,
stay tuned for that coming up. But like I said, yeah, you're right. Scooby-Doo was definitely one of Hanna-Barbera's all-time top characters.
I think that's
Like I
one of
said,
my best friends. Still her favorite show to this day. Like
my
she loves
dad,
Scooby Doo.
you know what? My dad, he was a diehard Scooby-Doo fan, so he watched it, we watched it. Like I said, we know the original gang back from what? The show itself debuted in 1969.
Oh, see, I
My
didn't
dad
know
was
that.
like, what? Let me see, he was born in 63, so he was like 6 years old. My mother was like 3 years old when the show, had debuted, so they grew up as it happened. Like I said, nowadays we got Scooby. That
I
poor
don't even.
dog's
I
been
can't
working
even.
80, 90 years now. Like I said, but the Scooby Doo we grew up on was actually the original, believe it or not. Because, like I said, that one revolutionized cartoons, especially for teens
Oh
in the
yeah, yeah,
70s.
exactly.
Because, like I said, you had Fred, Daphne,
Fred was the
Velma,
all
and
American
Shaggy.
jock. Shaggy was the
Yep.
guy always. I'm assuming was high
Eating.
out of his mind.
That's definitely a topic we can get into. Stuff, the special stuff that would go on in the 70s that kind of played out in cartoons because he always had that chill vibe. But,
Like Scoob. He had the voice and the
yes.
swagger
Oh,
along with it.
trust me. Shout out to Casey Kasem, the late, great Casey Kasem. For nothing else, I tear up every time just thinking about the legacy that man left playing just that character alone. Like him and Don Messick, the original voice of Scooby.
There
Because,
won't be a
everybody
replacement.
knows Scooby's, yes, nobody will be able to replace them. Frank Wheeler was Fred, but he did a voice for Scooby at a certain time after Don Messick had kind of went away. And I remember Heather North was one of the original voices for Daphne because she had two voiceovers.
I
I
noticed
forgot
that
who
too.
Velma was. Like I said, I forgot who Velma was, but trust me when I do the roll call, I'm definitely going to get the voice actor for Velma because, like I said, Velma, they were all iconic in their own special ways. Like you said, Velma, she
She had
always
Jinkies.
was the bring, yes, Jinkies,
And that's why I
the
feel so bad for Velma
catchphrases.
because she's such an underrated character, but she gave the show his catchphrase pretty much.
Yep, Jinkies and Daphne, danger prone Daphne always messed up the plan. Fred always came up with the plan. And Shaggy and Scooby were the bait. They
They're
were
always
always
the
the bait.
bait. Man.
You couldn't get them to do nothing until them Scooby snacks came out though.
Now, does
They were
Shaggy eat
smart.
the
They
Scooby
held up.
snacks too? Because I feel like he ate
Oh
Scooby snacks
yeah,
on a lot of occasions.
he did. He ate that stuff just like Scooby.
So
That's
this
what
man
really
was.
tripped me out. That's
Oh
what I'm
yeah, he
saying.
was
Maybe
on
he might have
something.
been doing a little
Yeah,
something.
he was on something. I know they
That's what I'm
couldn't slip that
saying.
under the radar at all.
Oh my God, no. And you know what? The way they ate those Scooby snacks, you would actually get curious and think, maybe they might taste like something.
You know what?
But you know what?
I
Go ahead.
think we should do a segment on these crazy cartoon theories sometime in the future because there's a lot of theories with a lot of different shows. Like they're really dark theories. I don't know. If they're all
Yeah.
man made or there's really something to these theories. But for what?
But I know what you're talking about. They do that all the time in Facebook posts where they, have this link you click on when they write about different theories about different cartoons growing up. So trust me, I'm on you with that one. So we
Definitely.
should bookmark that. But yeah, like I said, Hanna-Barbera did so much for us. Like the Flintstones, they told you about how things were living in the past. Everything was modern, but with the stone kind of twist.
Exactly.
The kickstart with the car. You got to put your feet first before you do it. And then Fred Flintstone with the twinkle toes bowling. Always on his toes before he threw the strike.
The sound effects did it for me. The sound.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Iconic stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? You don't get that with television these days.
You don't. And this is stuff you won't forget, like through a lifetime. Something you can tell your
That's
kids
what I'm
about.
saying.
And now, for what we grew up with, 90s shows, I feel like they're going to leave a huge impact on future generations as well. If this new generation even allows their kids to have access to the shows we watched when we were growing up. Because you can't tell me Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, Ed, and Ed, even Codename Kids Next Door, and I can go on and on. All those shows impacted you.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yep.
Now, which one came out first out of all of those? I want to say it was Dexter.
I can look because I got my list. Because trust me, there's so much content up here. We might have to do these channels in parts. So just to let everybody know, this is just part one.
Oh yeah, this is part one of a 3-part series.
Trust
so
me.
y'all are in for a treat for real.
Like I said, so as far as cartoon, let me see. Okay, so yeah, they have them listed under the 90s, but I'm not sure which one came first. What I do know is Ed, Edd n Eddy had debuted in 1988.
What?
Yeah, they were in January of 1988 or 99. It might have been 1999.
Oh yeah, it was 99.
Because I remember.
What? It was January.
Yeah, it was January of 1999.
Yeah. I don't remember day. I think it was January 19th, if I'm not mistaken.
You know what? Yeah, because in December they were probably doing the promos and whatnot. So you know what? Yeah, 98, 99, Ed, Edd n Eddy, that's when it came out, trust me. Like I said, Powerpuff Girls and stuff like that, they came out around that same year, as far as I know, with Johnny Bravo and everything. Because like I said, cartoons became their own thing on top of everything that, came before our time. You know what I mean? Like I said, with the Jetsons, they were trying to predict everything that was in the future. But when you look at today's, what we have now,
they were behind.
I mean, heck, yeah, like I said, where we are right now with the technology we're using, like other than, talking face to face on the camera, like I said, if they looked in the world of today,
right. Right.
Like I said, they would probably be so amazed. And you remember when they did the crossover movie, right?
Yeah.
Jetsons Meet the Flintstones.
That was iconic
trust me.
That was definitely
That's what I'm saying. That's kind of how it is today. Like, if we look back at where we were just in the 90s, like, I couldn't imagine any of this. Like I said, going on back then.
Podcast and us
That's
back
what
in the
I'm
90s,
saying.
we had to get access to a video camera and actually like get a camcorder recording ourselves in the same room doing this. Like now technology's evolved so much, and Jetsons wasn't even close. They didn't have the iPhones or the flat screen TV. Well, actually, no, they did have flat screen.
Yeah.
They did.
Like I said, they had the flat screen. They had the robot, Rosie.
That's pretty much Siri.
Yeah, I know. Alexa, Rosie, but she was a maid. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Alexa, she'll do stuff for you electronically, but Rosie, she used some elbow grease or, well, I guess mechanical oil if you want to be specific.
Rosie was actually my favorite character, honestly.
Yeah, her and Astro. Yeah,
Mr.
because
Mr. Slate. No, Mr. Spacely. Mr. Slate was Fred's boss.
yeah, Mr. Spacely. He kind of always, believe it or not, he kind of always reminded me of another icon within the 70s, 80s, George Jefferson.
Ow!
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because he had the same, first of all, they had the same complexion. They had the same style. The halfway, and, the voice sounded so similar. I thought that he did Sherman Helmsley, great actor who did voiceover for, yes, he actually did voiceover for cartoons. One, the dinosaurs, but that would be covered for, he was the dinosaurs boss. He was the dinosaurs boss. The big Mr. Rich something, I can't remember. Like I said, when we get to Disney Channel, I would definitely get more into that. But yeah, like I said, that's who Mr. Spacely have reminded me of growing up, because the way he sounded and every time he would yell, Jetson.
That's crazy. I didn't even think about
it
until you just now mentioned it. Then it just popped in my head like, he does put me in the mind of George Jefferson. So it's like,
as I'm saying, because he's short and in charge and always kind of angry at the world unless he's, making money. So.
Exactly. I wonder if people get theories behind this. Got to be some reasoning behind this, because it's too similar. It's almost uncanny.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. He always had that boss that would always yell in the ear because, Mr. Slate, even back in Stone Age, would always yell, Flintstone. Yes. That's what I'm saying. Hanna-Barbera, they definitely had some good hits. Like, I'm going to do a couple quick shout-outs real quick. Like, again, Snoops and Blabber, Snagglepuss, Squiddly Diddly, Adam Ant, and one of my personal favorites that got adapted, Secret Squirrel.
Secret Squirrel, yes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Before, like I said, before Two Stupid Dogs, where Secret Squirrel that we know.
That's what it was. Two Stupid Dogs, not Cow Chicken.
Yes, Hanna-Barbera had Secret Squirrel as its own show as part of the Adam Ant television show. It was Adam Ant / Super Secret Squirrel, actually Secret Squirrel as it was just known as. And the differences between them and the Secret Squirrel that we grew up with on Two Stupid Dogs, like, we'll get into that soon as we get down to the 90s. Like I said, there's so much content, like I said, even before our time. Like I said, they had Quick Draw McGraw. They had Magilla Gorilla.
One of my other favorites.
Go ahead.
Oh, that was one of my other favorites, Magilla Gorilla.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The gorilla that would never get sold from the pet store. And Mr. Peasley, as hard as he tried. And the little girl, OG, who always wanted a pet gorilla but couldn't afford it. Trust me, they had a groovy about that. Yeah,
I remember that.
You remember
got
the
a gorilla
groovy?
For sale. Got a gorilla for sale.
Magilla for sale. Yeah, that groovy was so dope. Just what I'm saying, they had groovies for stuff like that. Cartoons had groovies. Ed, Edd n Eddy, the Powerpuff Girls. I
think Dexter did
Looney
too.
Tunes. Yep, they had a couple groovies for Dexter's Lab. They were a little later. The ones that I remember, they had one. I'm trying to think. It was by it was a famous group in 2000s though, because they had it was called like Back to the Lab Again. That's the one that I remember from the Dexter's Lab groovies.
I think I remember that one.
Yeah, it was like, back to the lab again. Oh no, back to the lab
again. And it was like maybe
not
based
again.
on Dee Dee. Oh, okay, yeah, I do remember that. I remember that one.
What was the one that was based on Dee Dee? Because I remember a groovy about that.
It was I forgot how. All I remember is it was like her. It was like a giant version of her, and she was just like walking. I can't even remember. It's kind of slipped my mind.
That might have been an episode, a clip of an episode. Because I do remember an episode of Dexter's Lab where she became a giant because she ate a cookie.
Yeah, that was an actual episode. I remember it was even on the theme. Wait, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Wait, was it?
But like I said, trust me, we gonna get to that too. Believe me, yeah. And Yogi Bear, you know what? That was another big one for Hanna-Barbera.
Oh, definitely.
That and Wacky Races.
With Dick Dastardly.
Oh, yes. You know, they had Dick Dastardly, Professor Pat Penning, the Arkansas Chugabug. They had the Slag Brothers. They had Penelope Pitstop, who had her own show with the seven little, I'm trying to remember. They were kind of like gangsters, but like I cannot
Like
remember their
mobs.
names. Yeah, it was
Let
kind
me
of a
see.
mob. They had, it was like the Perils of Penelope Pitstop, where she would always get captured by this one guy who was her guardian for her heritage. I can't remember his name off the top of my head because it's been a while. But yeah, she was always protected by seven little short guys that were in the mob. They were midgets, but they drove this car that could talk, you know. Like I said, oh, that reminds me, machinery that could talk. Another classic that was back in that time, Speed Buggy.
Speed Buggy, that was one of the most notable ones.
You know what I'm saying? And speaking of Speed Buggy, because that kind of reminds me of other cartoons that Hanna-Barbera did that were kind of based off of like Scooby-Doo format. They had a couple like that. Speed Buggy, the one about the motorcycle,
That
Josie
was
and the Pussycat.
Josie and the Pussycat. That was one of the. I like their groovy they had.
Oh, yeah, they had a groovy too. Because like I said, their groovy was based on the theme. But what they did was they mixed it up for
With like
different eras
rock.
of music.
Yeah, they had heavy metal, like jazz, disco.
Yep, and they even had rodeo, you know.
They did. Towards the end.
And then they had, you know, mixers and DJs for the last little bit, and then they kind of revert back to the original, you know, the drum set, the little guitars and whatnot, and the tambourine.
Yeah, the tambourine.
You know. Can't forget the tambourine. Like I said, it was always the black one had the tambourine, the red one had the guitar, and the blonde, she had the, you know, the drums.
Guitar,
and that was like the gang set, because it was them on the band. They had a blonde guy that was their agent, kind of. See, they had like two roadies, so to speak, that would play backup. One was also voiced by Casey Kasem.
Oh man,
he was the brother of he was the brother of the snotty one, the brunette, the black-haired one that was snotty towards Josie, because she always got the man, and the blonde guy, you know, she always got the man. And the cat that they had, it was her cat that was always getting into trouble. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, they kind of followed the Scooby-Doo format of teens out in adventure. Another one that did that was one of my personal favorites, Jabberjaw. Because they had the band.
That was so dope.
You remember, because they had a groovy for that one too, based off the theme. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, growing up in the 90s, they definitely did. They had a band that actually did the groovy for that. They did the theme song where they're being chased by these robots in a lunchbox, because, you know, it was kind of retro, because you know how back in the day, those type of characters had lunchboxes and mugs that you would take to preschool and whatnot.
When they were at the
so that kind of played up, you know, that's what I'm saying, stuff like that, you know, growing up, it reflected how times were beforehand in the cartoons that would play like reruns for, like I said, it was new to us, but reruns for like our parents and stuff. So
they had
a couple
episode.
Of
this
them.
came out when such and such. It's like, it's crazy how they remember almost every episode that comes on.
Trust me, yeah. As I'm saying, I have a couple of shows like listed under there like that. I mean, here's another good one, Pink Panther.
Pink Panther.
Now, remember how earlier you touched about characters that never talk. Now, the Pink Panther, all they had was the music and the sound effects. Now, that in itself was its own kind of thing, because think about it. The Pink Panther never spoke. They never had dialogue, even with the human, because like I said, they had the Pink Panther and the Hunter that was French, you know, because that's
Oh
who they
yeah,
based
yeah.
the movie off of with
Steve Martin.
Beyonce and
Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah, he was the French guy. You know, that was another cutoff segment right there. But like I said, in the 70s, yeah, they were loaded. Scooby-Doo, you know, Hanna-Barbera really kind of dominated the 70s and whatnot, because a lot of this stuff, like they even had stuff like what? The Funky Phantom.
The Funky
That was
Phantom. I'm
one
trying to remember that
that
one.
it was about these kids that would solve mysteries with a ghost. You know,
Mm.
oh, jeepers, it's the Funky Phantom. Oh, and you know what? That reminds me of another one. Um, they had a Fang Face where this guy, whenever the moon came out, he would change into like this goofy werewolf that would always say "ooh, ooh" all the time and whatnot. That was one of my personal favorites. And Inch
That
High
sounds like
Private
really.
Eye.
Oh yeah, yeah. Inside Private Eye.
The one literally an inch high, and he would drive the car. He would run across the wheel, and I'm like, you gonna let that little thing actually drive the car that all of you grown people were sitting in? And he did all the detective work. You know, he was smart. He was only an inch, but he was good at his job. You know,
They can't make a cartoon like they can't replicate that.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like I said, there's like a whole list of them. And one that you had listed, that was one of your favorites, Hong Kong Phooey.
Man, I love Hong Kong
That was
Phooey. That
another
was.
one. Foul mysteries and solving crime. A dog that knew karate,
He was
but
so
he
he
was
was
a
smooth
janitor.
too. He was smooth
You know
like
what? And
Pink
the
Panther,
funny
but he
thing
could
about
talk.
it, like I said, yeah. And the funny thing about it is, I know the actor is on my retro roll call because the guy who did the voice for him was actually an African American actor. Now
Yes.
that's what really kind of, because that voice was so distinct, you know, it just screamed of, yeah, that's the
Yeah, it
black dude
did.
doing his voice. Yeah,
First time I heard
that's
it,
what
I
I'm
already
saying.
knew.
And trust me, that theme song, who could ever forget? Hong
Kung
Kong
Fu,
Phooey.
number one super
Yeah,
guy.
number one super guy. Hong Kong Phooey. Quicker
With
than
the
the
human
human eye.
eye. That was my
Oh, and the
song.
car that he drove. Yeah, trust me, the thing that would always break down and whatnot. And he had the cat that was a sidekick that would always, you know, bang on the drawer that he changed into to get into his Hong Kong Phooey,
His little
you
outfit.
know,
Yeah.
karate suit. Yeah, because he was a janitor in an office for a living. You know, dogs had a job. Scooby, you know, he always had to do some Astro. He always, you know,
Astro.
helped out. You
What did
know, Dick
Astro do?
Dastardly had he talked, but you know, anytime
He would
George would
holler.
ever get in trouble, yeah, you know, he had the voice again, you know, hello, George, and
Yeah.
everything, you know, because you know, Astro and Scooby, they were always, you know, and another one, Dynamite.
Dino
Like he
Mutt.
was the
He was one of the biggest
superhero. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Dogs on Cartoon Network definitely stayed employed, you know. Even though Hong Kong
ones.
Phooey was a janitor, he was fighting crime out there on the streets,
No,
you
he had a
know.
little
I
side
can't get a
hustle.
dog to heal. That's what I'm saying. He had a side hustle. That's what I'm saying. He was the original gangster right there, had
He
his side
was.
hustle.
He was.
Yes. So like I said, that's one of my personal favorites too. But you know, like I said, there's so much content here, and that's just from stuff before our time, you know. Kind of moving down the list, jumping into the 80s, they came out with different shows that kind of broke down. Like they had a pup named Scooby Doo, where even as
Like a
kids, they were
spinoff.
solving mysteries.
They were. It was a little more
Yeah,
like less spooky.
but
Cause
it had one thing, yeah, that stood out for me was the music. Whenever they had the chase scenes, because every song in Scooby Doo, whenever there was the monster, everybody would be chased. Even in the original, they had a music. Oh yeah, and shout out to a guy that did the music. There were two that stood out: Davy Jones and Austin Mahoney. They always did the songs for the original
oh,
Scooby
I
Doo
know Davy
chase
Jones did
scenes.
it for the original. Yeah.
Yeah, because they always had the catchy beats and the lyrics, and They called it the Scooby-Doo snack track. If you look up on YouTube, all the Chase songs that would go through episodes of the original.
And they have them
Yeah,
all
I
listed.
listened to those. Yeah, they have them all listed, and I TiVo them like, like MP3. Like, yeah, I got one on mine now. It's the happy one, because those songs to me, they always have a special place in my heart because they always reminded me of the episode that was going on in that moment,
Exactly.
Like I said. And then when a pup named Scooby-Doo came around, that became kind of a running joke. Like, Freddie, start the chase music, or, Velma, kick the music.
And they're more like self-aware.
Yeah, because, as they got older, younger, but older in time, they kind of, developed the story a little bit more because, things back then were a little bit simpler than what they had with, pup named Scooby-Doo.
Right.
It was still good, but it was still its own original kind of format, so to speak. They
That's
made
the one
running
spinoff.
gags out of
Yeah,
everything.
they did. But that's the one spinoff I give on the original Where Are You, Scooby-Doo? Or Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Because every other
Yeah,
revamp that they've done, I haven't been impressed with. But the pup named Scooby-Doo is the
that
exception. I
was one
really
of
loved
mine.
it.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites growing up. Whenever I had to go to summer school, that was one that was always TiVo'd.
The theme song, you can't beat that
Oh
theme
my
song either.
God, yes, them women could sing, and they always sung the Chase songs too. And trust me, they had some soul going on back
They
then. Trust
did.
me, I'm
Whoever
saying
that
from the
man was that
beginning
was
song.
singing, shoot.
Oh my gosh, yes, him and them three vocalists, or if there was three, I don't know how many could have been singing, but yeah, they could sing. Trust me. Like I said, just listening to theme songs got you excited for the shows.
It did. Oh, that's another segment we're
Like
doing. We're actually
that.
going to do some good themes too.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yes. Stay tuned because we're going to do a review on the different songs, talk about them, who sung the songs, what they meant to us, lyrics, even little parodies, if we can get my vocals right. So, but yeah, another good one, a new style that kind of picked up back then. Ones that kind of stood out for me were Alvin and the Chipmunks,
Classic.
um,
Definitely.
the Smurfs, and
Smurfs.
the Snorks. Like I said, yep. And that was like in the decades of the 80s, so to speak, because a lot of what I have on my list kind of have, they were kind of spin-offs. They had a pup named Scooby-Doo, the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. They
Mhm.
had Scooby-Doo Mysteries, Scooby-Doo, the new Scooby movies. Well, that's still kind of in the 70s and whatnot. But like I said, yeah, Hanna-Barbera really kind of dominated because they had the Flintstones kids,
Oh yeah,
well, Tom
Flintstones
and Jerry
kid.
kids, stuff like that, Another good one that came out was Johnny Quest.
Johnny Quest.
Johnny
Oh,
Quest.
man. With
Now, he was
Haji.
like, yep, race. And the doctor who was the father to the redhead girl, Jessie, it was Dr. something something.
I
And
forgot
then
his
Johnny
name.
Quest. Yeah, for the life of me, I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. But like when we go into specific shows, I'm pretty sure I could name them all because I remember Johnny, Haji, Race, Jesse, and the Doctor. That's who I remember from Johnny Quest because he was like the first kind of action kind of dude
He
for
was.
us
He kind
that,
of set that off. He did.
yeah,
He was like the Indiana
growing up.
Jones of cartoon.
Right, because he gave that vibe like everything was an adventure, wrestling with animals and going in Egyptian pyramids and stuff. I'd read about that in a magazine and call it a day.
That's what I'm saying. I ain't touching none of that.
Yeah.
But they did a really good job at creating the show, the animation style. It was classic Hanna-Barbera style, but at the same time, it
hmm
gave like a different flavor. It's,
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, because as the times, they kind of adapted to the times, And they even had another new one, Richie Rich.
oh, Richie Rich,
Richie Rich.
man. That boy had it made.
That's what I'm saying. If I could live like him for a day, boy, that money, I know where it would go, how it would get there, what it would look like on me. Yeah.
He was like the rich version of Dennis the Menace, pretty much.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Dennis the Menace. Now he in himself, he did a couple networks. So yeah,
Oh,
they had cartoons that would transition between different networks. Dennis the Menace, that was another good one right there.
with a really good theme too. Mr.
Yeah,
Wilson. Oh,
Dennis the
Dennis the
Menace. Yeah,
Menace.
Mr. Wilson, the cranky neighbor. That became a running thing with, cartoons. They
Oh
always
yeah.
got on that one neighbor's nerves. Like he kind of set that bar because Richie Rich, I think he had a neighbor or something that would, like I said, whenever they get into a mishap, something would happen, the neighbor would get
Mhm.
ticked off at the kids and whatnot. And then they kind of went for Dennis the Menace because, Mr. Wilson, my God, that man he
He could
couldn't
not.
stand that,
He couldn't.
Let's just say there are child laws that protect, people like Richie Rich in this society today. Let's put it like that.
And it's funny
Richie
because the
Rich
first
had
show that
money.
broke that cycle with the neighbor getting like extremely angry with the kid, it wasn't even a Cartoon Network show. I think Nick had the first show to break that cycle. It was Doug because Doug had Mr. Dink, and Mr. Dink was always
Oh
like the
my
friendly,
God,
cool neighbor.
yes. That's what I'm saying. And yeah, trust me, Nickelodeon was one of my personal favorites because you know what? They did have a lot of cartoons that would transition between the networks too.
And they
Like I said,
did.
that's definitely something I wanted to get in, touch upon. Like I said, here's another good one. Thundercats, because
Thundercats.
they had a lot of cartoons back in the day that actually, kind of got you really excited into, action and whatnot, boomer action. They had stuff like Superman and Batman and, like I said, they had their original live action, but then they became cartoons back in that time. We had Aquaman. They had,
Aquaman was
you
dope.
know, yeah, that's what I'm
I
saying.
like
Those kind of
Aquaman.
cartoons where there was a superhero, Wonder Woman, the Justice League, which
Oh,
eventually
Justice
spawned
League is
off the
another
Teen
one. Oh
Titans.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So they are branching to something else.
yeah. Oh, yeah, trust me. Oh, that's definitely starting to kick in. Yep, kicking into the good stuff, kicking into the
That's
good stuff, heading into the 90s. Because I feel like there's still some cartoons from those decades that I'm kind of missing. But
that's what I'm trying
like
to
I
think of.
said,
I think it's some that we overlook.
yeah,
Let
like I
me
said,
see.
I got a more detailed list in my Google Docs if you give me a second, because yeah, I feel like there's so much content that might have got skipped over. Because now that I think about it, yeah, because there are other cartoons that started to come to mind, like Inspector Gadget.
Inspector
That was
Gadget
one
was
of my
dope.
favorites. Yeah, they had the
That was
theme and
the
Go
theme was
Go
so dope.
Gadget.
Oh my god.
Yes, that theme right there, my God. Man,
Inspector Gadget. Woo, woo.
yes. Yes, that was always for me.
The part that got
Yes,
me is I'll get you next time, Gadget. Next that part was
yes, I
always so
know the
dope to me.
villains. As I'm saying, he always had those special gadget everything. Go go gadget this. Go go gadget long arms. Go go gadget machine car. Go go. He was another one that mastered hammer space.
He did though.
Like I said, but everything was technologically, in his jacket.
So yeah,
Oh, hey, what's up, man?
down my brother.
Oh, yeah. All right, so part two, we back
Part.
at it.
Oh, it's been a little minute. We had a little pause in between.
Yeah, trust me, a lot's gone down since. So,
So
but
you
hey,
want
welcome back,
to cap on
folks.
part one of the episode?
Yeah, we had left off. We were talking about different shows like action kind of shows like Thundercats, and then I remember we were talking about Inspector Gadget. So I'd say that's a pretty good starting point.
So we basically left off on like what the 80s, huh? The 70s or
Yep.
80s or something like that.
Yeah, we are right into the 80s, about to roll into the nostalgic 90s. So,
Nice, nice. So And this is probably going to be my favorite part because, as much as I love all the classics, the 90s, I think kind of takes the cake, in my opinion,
Yeah,
because nothing really
can't beat
was
the
good.
90s.
You can't
Yeah.
beat the show. You can't beat the
Yes.
yeah. Things are more advanced by
Oh,
that point. The shows were more advanced, animation style, you name it. But
yeah.
what really kicked
Trust
off
me.
the 90s?
Well, give me a second. Okay, can you hear me better?
That's when I can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see. Well, I got a couple different ones that kind of just popped up into mind. Got my list out, and it's pretty much in alphabetical order. So really, I mean, well, let's see what's on the list. Favorites is first is Two Stupid Dogs, debuted in about 1992. So I'd say that's a pretty good place to start.
Which one?
Two Stupid Dogs, with the big dog, the little dog, and a super secret squirrel. I'm sorry,
Oh, man, yeah. That was like, the service is kind of going out over here. Can you still hear me?
yeah, I can hear you kind of breaking in and out. That's okay, cause it's raining over my way too. So
Oh, yeah, same thing on my end. Well, it's not raining, but the service is just trash, period. But Two Stupid Dogs, I remember that being one of my favorites. And Secret Squirrel kind of put cartoon within the cartoon.
yes, that's what I always loved about that show. It was kind of like a bonus show within the show. So
And I like how they continued to do that format, Cartoon Network. That was one of the things. It kind of like kept your attention, especially
right,
as a kid. Like you kind of, it's like a nugget you get within the show. Because you're so used to these
yeah,
3 segments in one episode, but when they try to throw in something like, Secret Squirrel for Two Stupid Dogs, or M is for Monkey
right,
for Dexter's Lab, and that kind of changes the
right.
game a little bit.
Oh yeah, trust me, Dexter's Lab was
Well, for
definitely a
Cal-
good one.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
definitely. There
I'm
was one
sorry. What
for
were you saying?
Cow and Chicken as well. Um, I said there was one for Cow and Chicken as well. I think it was
I Am Weasel.
IR Boom or I Am Weasel. One of the
Yeah,
two.
I Am Weasel. Yeah, and IR Baboon was his friend slash nemesis. Excuse me.
That show was so dope to me. I think that was one of my favorite secondary segments
Yeah,
because
I
like
know, cause
it was just different.
yeah,
It
cause I
kind of followed
mean,
the battle of Cow and Chicken.
yeah, I mean, from what I can remember of the show, they also had from time to time the red guy, the little devil thing with the
Yeah.
butt hanging out, and
What about it?
he would
Called
always. I mean, he kind of played like a couple different characters. And you know what that kind of reminds me of, jumping back to Two Stupid Dogs, the guy of Hollywood that would always say, well, isn't that cute? But it's
But it's wrong.
wrong. And I mean, yeah, those two characters, you could always see them as something different, like a character that's playing a different character on the show, no matter which segment they were going to. It'd be male or female, truthfully. And it was like, I always thought that was kind of cool.
That was pretty dope. I, Especially with Two Stupid Dogs already being like as good as a show, as good of a show as it was. They always like added a
Yeah.
little extra just to make it a little better. I think that's one of the ones that should have lasted longer as far as like original series. I don't think it was that long lived. It had to be
It was
like,
about 2 seasons.
yeah, just 2 seasons. That's the crazy part. As a kid, you would think like there would be so many episodes, many of the episodes, but with it only being 2 seasons, that would like surprise someone.
try to TiVo it as much as I can when I can find it online. So
What
I'm trying to
else?
think. Oh yeah, trust me, there's plenty more.
There was
Let me
another.
see. Um, Let me see. I know we touched a little bit about Steven Spielberg. I know one of my favorites from him was Animaniacs. You know, and that had a
Animaniacs.
lot of different
Last.
segments. Now that I think about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Plenty different
Yeah,
ones. It came in right in the midst of Tiny Toons also, which had its
right,
own variety of different segments.
right. Like each different character kind of had their own little personal thing, you know, to kind of bounce off of, you know, the next one to the next one, kind of like they did with the original Looney Tunes, you know.
And I remember you reminded me that Steven Spielberg even created these cartoons because that still kind of takes me by surprise. I know they were like WB cartoons and especially Tiny Toons. That kind of surprised me with the fact that Spielberg made it. But he has his own animation style too that you can kind of, it's kind of like distinct from other animators. Like you can tell the difference between his animation style versus people like Hanna-Barbera
Yeah.
and Tex Avery and more like pop out type animation. It was more, I think it was a little more as for its time than what people were
Yeah,
used to.
right. You know, yeah, you did say a key factor right there, you know, with animators like such as Tex Avery, because I know like his cartoons, trust me, they all had something special about them, at least to me. Like, you know, they had Droop Dog and, you know, what else? What else? I know Droopy was one of the popular ones. Oh yeah, Barney Bear and the Wolf and Little Red Riding Hood when she became Little Miss Hot Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
You know, that like they all kind of had their own distinct styles and whatnot.
Spielberg was definitely one that was kind of ahead of his time, and I like that about it. Animaniacs, out of the two, out of Animaniacs and Tiny Toons, I say I like Animaniacs a little bit more.
Yeah, you know, I gotta say, out of the two, wow, it's kind of close between them because, like I said, I like Animaniacs because of the different they kind of always jumped in and out with adult type jokes and whatnot. Like looking back at a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, back
Over our
then you
head.
never would have known. Yeah. And then when looking back at it now, it's just kind of like, oh, I can't believe they got away with saying that. Or, you know, they were wild.
Like,
So, you know, I think I might have to
about
agree with you. So, yeah.
exactly, exactly. They actually got revived recently. Like they have a new series on Hulu, and I
Yeah.
didn't get a chance to check too much of that out because I didn't want it to take like I wanted it to take some elements from the original, but I don't really get my hopes up when it comes to revivals, so I didn't really like get that deep into it. But I'm hopefully it kind of holds a candle to the original. I know it has the original voice actors and all that good stuff, so that's a plus.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I remember when they were advertising for the new one, I was kind of interested, but at the same time, I was like, kind of half and half about it myself. So, like I said, I haven't seen it yet either, but who knows? You know, maybe I might TiVo it
Harley,
one day. Oh yeah, now that trust me, I watched that, and like I said, it was pretty good for the most part. Just
can't
it
wait till
was
we get
definitely like,
to Mount. That's a whole
well,
other for a different day.
trust me. Oh man. Let's see, is there any other shows that definitely come to mind? Something that jumps out at you, especially about the
Lab.
90s. Dexter's Lab, yeah, that was definitely one of the best. You know, The lady who did the voice for Dexter, not sure how to say her last name, Cravan. You know, she passed away recently, I'd say within the last either 5 or 6 years and whatnot. Yeah, she did a lot, you know, especially, you know, shout out to her, you know, may she rest, because she was definitely on the roll call as far as retro roll call.
Definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, Dexter's Lab just as a cartoon in its own right, like, wow. It made you feel like, how would I say it? It kind of made the nerdy guy look cool, you know? It really did.
It really did.
You know?
And before the Jimmy Neutrons and before all that good
Right.
stuff. And on top of that, even if you didn't think, if you were the only child, it gave you that feeling like you had an annoying older sibling that pretty much wrecked everything you did. Because the way they portrayed Dee and the way he foiled all of his plans before he can even get his plan underway. And she was so simple-minded. So that added both the engine.
And you know what? The funny thing about that was she always had a knack for wanting to press a button she wasn't supposed to.
Yes. That was her catchphrase. What does this button do?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. She would always press that button, but, you know, not just literally, but figuratively, too, because she would always mishap. Just
always.
Yeah. But I mean, there was a lot.
Dexter, I'm glad that they, even though he was like the smart scientific kid, I'm glad they didn't really portray him as like the nerd who was just like really unpopular, because though he was looked at as unpopular in pretty much a majority of the series, he did have friends. Like he had friends who shared the same interests he did. He had a nemesis, Man Dark, who
Man Dark.
overall.
Yes, Man Dark. Who could forget Man Dark? Yeah, and you know what? Funny thing about it was Dee Dee. Lala Vibe, I think that's how you pronounce it. Man, I tell you what, though, yeah, like you were saying with the different hobbies, one of his hobbies actually became a show within the show, you know, with Major Glory and the Justice Friends, you know.
The Justice.
Yeah.
So for everybody,
Justice
Friends was basically a parody of Justice League. Major Glory, I'm assuming, was Captain America. Crunk was supposed to be the Hulk. And Van Halen, who is he supposed to be?
I'm not sure. I think he was just unique in his own way, because I don't remember any musical kind of, you know, at least not for the Justice League. I mean, there was like a band that would be like superheroes. I can't remember their names to save my life, but it was like an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon. There were 3 different types of superheroes that played an instrument. I'm going to have to look that up later. But yeah, Val Allen was actually kind of unique in his own little way.
He was. I liked his character. a lot. He was always the mellow, chill one. It's like the naive, you know, destructive, but good-hearted one. It kind of reminded me of Ed, Edd n Eddy a little bit. I feel like kind of played Ed, and it was just crazy to me because his favorite show was TV Puppet Pals, and that was kind of like a series within the series.
I know
they had their own segment.
Right, yeah. They would always do the bonk jokes. You know, he always had that little stick he would hit Puppet Pal Clem with. Yeah.
Puppet Pal Clem. Hey, Puppet Pal Clem, where do you deposit your money? At the First National Bank.
Yes, they always had it. Yeah, Puppet Pal Clem and Puppet Pal Mitch. Yeah. He always had the little stick. Yeah. That was one of my personal favorites, really.
Man. Dexter is a show in general. I think it was one of the originators for Cartoon Fridays, wasn't it?
Right. Like I said, Cartoon Fridays, that was a time block, you know. I know you've already known how I felt about it at first, when it first came on, because when they started Cartoon, they blocked off from like what 6 o'clock to what the 10 o'clock. At first, I didn't like it because I missed Bugs and Daffy, the show. But more and more I got into it, the more and more I started to like it. And then we got different shows out of it, like Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Johnny Bravo.
And it was a drama. We were so used to, 6 o'clock came along, Tex Avery show was about to come on, Looney Tunes was about to come on, and just them not getting rid of it altogether, but kind of pushing it further up the ladder as far as like prime time slots. It was hard to get used to Cartoon Fridays. And like you said, like it took a little minute to adjust because we didn't know these cartoons. What do we really have to expect? But as the series went on, as cartoon went on, I think all of them pretty much became successful.
They really did, because now that I think about it, yeah, there's not too many that I don't remember out of the cartoon lineup. I mean, they had Courage the Cowardly Dog, they had Sheep in the Big City, they had what else? I got the list. Mike Lou and all. I Am Weasel became its own little show.
Hold on. I'm not even gonna lie. But this is neither here nor there, but I feel like Mike Lou and all should not have been as big as it got. I don't think it should have spanned off and became its own series. It was good, don't get me wrong. It was different. The concept was different, but the show and all just didn't give me that same feeling that, Johnny Bravo, Dexter, Ed, and Eddie, etc. gave me.
That's right,
back pocket right there.
I mean, for me, like I said, at first I really wasn't. I can't really say I didn't not like the show, but it didn't really get too excited until after I really started to really watch it and get into it, and then it became kind of a classic for me when they would do reruns of different time slots, maybe in the summer. But it probably did pick up a lot more steam than you would have thought back then. So you might have a point there.
I didn't even get my interest like that. I mean, I tuned in for almost every episode, but it's like you said, I wouldn't be that excited to tune into it, but I still watch it, which automatically kind of makes it an undeniable classic. It was already thrown in the mix with the other shows that we enjoyed. Now, just like that, I Am Weasel, because it did become its own. Didn't it break apart from Cow and Chicken?
Right. It had its own little. It became its own half-an-hour show, and then we got to get more into the different characters, because like I said, it was mostly just our baboon. Excuse me. I Am Weasel, and the red guy who would transition between shows and whatnot. But
exactly.
Like I said, I don't know. Thinking back, Johnny Bravo. Looking at it, like I said, that one to me, how Dexter was always kind of portrayed as the nerdy kid that was cool. Johnny Bravo always struck me as get it. He kind of made the big jocks that everybody's supposed to like, but they really didn't. No.
That people really didn't like him until because he portrayed himself as such as a chick magnet, like an Elvis impersonator, that you couldn't help but to think he was going to be successful with every woman he tried to pursue. Even though he get rejected in every episode, in the back of your mind when you're a kid, you still think, oh, this dude is cool, just from his appearance, just from the shades. He was buff.
Yeah.
He lived with his mom, but you kind of overlooked
He did. And he always did, now that you mention it, he did always have that kind of Elvis tone in his speech and his dialogue when you looked at it, from the show's point of view. Whenever he spoke to anybody, he always, Okay.
Hey,
Yep,
don't worry,
we back.
that last part out.
Good. Oh yeah. So what were we talking about when
We
we
left
last left?
I think I Am Weasel, I believe.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. We were talking about how shows back in the day had segments within segments. Stuff like that.
And then
Excuse me.
their own segment. Well, they got their own show eventually, their own half-hour block.
Right.
It shows the success and how how the ratings were set up.
Right.
It was all about popular demand. So
Right.
we talked about that. Oh, we didn't talk about Dial M for Monkey. That was
Oh yeah. That was actually a pretty good one too. Yeah. I always remembered how anytime there would be trouble afoot, there would be Miss Honeydew
it's
that
funny.
would use her telepathic kind of powers to kind of contact Monkey from Dexter's lab, like literally. And trust me, he had some pretty good.
That's the crazy part about it.
Yeah, because it was his actual monkey that was, playing the superhero and whatnot, and you know.
Which that was interesting. So I think that's when Dexter was like at his best, and that's where it was starting to rise as one of the best cartoon shows. And after, just like other Cartoon Network shows, after the first 3 or 4 seasons, you can kind of tell the difference in the animation style, and you can also tell the decline in the creative writing because the episodes seem more like they pandered to a different audience versus like just that classic feel of how when Dexter first started. And
Right.
I think the same. I think Dexter, from what I remember from the later seasons, it kind of like shifted from focusing on him and Dee Dee to more about more episodes with parents. Um, the episodes are more
Right.
out there, which I'm not complaining because some things are good as far as like cartoon wise, like changing, but it's like some elements you want to keep the same. Like Dexter didn't have that same feel, and it's just like.
Yeah. Like I said, you hit some key points right there. Like they even changed their animation style, which is really kind of a raise the eyebrow a little bit to me. So
That guy threw me up.
I'm trying
I
to
do want to
think.
focus
Is there
more
any
on
other
the
cartoon?
cartoon, but I know, like every other, like the other two of the big three, like Nick and Disney, they both had their pros and cons. And Cartoon Network wasn't short of its cons either, but it was mainly just like as seasons progress with the primary shows, like you could tell the decline of writing skill. The writing skill kind of like went out the window. They rushed more episodes, like. Same thing
Right.
with Bravo. Like it started off with him just being a mama's boy, regular, trying to be a chick magnet, blah blah blah, and then focus more on that little girl, and that's when that kind of went downhill. And the animation style was crazy.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It's like a pattern with the show.
Yeah.
I think the only one that didn't do that, honestly, was Powerpuff Girls, because not including this new revival, but before when it was just like a consistent series when it was going initially, like the animation style pretty much stayed the same. It progressed a little bit, but not too much to where you would notice like a dramatic change. Like the jokes, the humor was still the same. It wasn't too much slap.
Right.
It was more like in your face type humor, like with some adult jokes thrown in there that went over our heads and we were kids. But that's one thing I did appreciate about that series. It stayed consistent during its first run. And
Yeah.
it fell short.
They did. Like I said, from the time they began till about the time they had started school, that's when things kind of,
Took a turn. Now I want to say for the worse. It was like a change of pace. Because, even I think they even addressed it. Because that episode where they first start school and Eddie Fall's about to start, but Eddie still portrays it like it's summer. And he tries to trick the kids into believing it's summertime. So he has all these smoke machines and stuff like that to create rain and all that type of stuff. And you could tell the animation starting to change a little bit. And when they start to focus more on Peach Creek Junior High versus just being in the cul-de-sac, that's like
Right.
that took a big piece of the creativity away too. Because like when it's summertime, they could pretty much do anything, like scam after scam after scam. At school, you got to focus on school. So it's just like
Right.
there's only so much to create work with.
Yeah, like I said, me personally, one thing I always liked about that show was, before they went back to school, they kind of had free range to do whatever because, again, it was summertime. Kids got to hang out, be kids. They spent their time together coming up with new ideas, getting into a lot of trouble together and finding ways to get out of it. And, even, the dynamic of the show, it kind of changed a little bit
First,
when they went back to school.
Jimmy
Like I
became
said,
a crybaby, and that's even like Sarah became more destructive. Ed just became dumber.
I was gonna say weirder, but yeah,
Yeah, weird.
that would be another
He
way.
was definitely weirder. Like his obsession with gravy was turned from like a 6 to a 10, and
Right.
Double D was pretty much the character that stayed kind of. I think the only difference in Double D in the last couple seasons was he kind of stood up for himself a little more when it came to like Eddie and kind of like pretty much branched off his own thing. He was more like the mediator rather than like just being a doormat like he was in the first few seasons,
Right.
which was a cool contrast. I mean, I like the change. It's just like I always wonder why they chose the last couple seasons to have that drastic change. Eddie was just like still the same jerk, not too much changed about him.
Man, he even went under. I'm sorry, say it again.
He was definitely more of a target though. Like he was targeting
Yeah.
kids, Kevin especially.
Right. Like you said, things definitely changed, especially when they went back to school. I mean, I felt like they really kind of. I don't know. It kind. How would I describe it in a way? Like with Eddie, he for some reason just like he was still trying to become that popular kid and whatnot, trying to fit in with all his friends and everything like that. But he kind of came a bit more more obnoxious than he normally would be when it comes to just being trying to get in with the in crowd and whatnot. Like, he
More
even went under a new persona
he did.
one time just to fit in and kind of abandon, Ed and Double D. And I was like, that's kind of much. But, like again, there's only so much you can really change and work with, within, that kind of thing. Because the only thing that I can remember that really did stay the same was there weren't too many adults on the show. And the
Oh
only
yeah.
adult that you ever saw was in the finale, which was the big picture show, was Eddie's brother. That was it.
And even that wasn't
Yeah.
like a stretch because he was more like, in my eyes, like just the older teenager. He really didn't even strike me as the adult. And with Eddie,
Right.
I noticed with him the last couple seasons, he became like more insecure too. Like his whole
Right.
persona, whole image through the last part of the series reminded me of that one episode where he had got the pimple, and all the cul-de-sac
Right.
kids were disappointed at it, and it made his self-esteem drop even lower. That was his whole personality throughout the last couple seasons, and that's just like
Mm-hmm.
one of the main things. It's not even just like the edge; it's also like all the cul-de-sac kids, pretty much their personalities changed, whether it was drastic or it was just minor. Johnny 2x4, he changed in some ways. I can't really pinpoint in detail change, but but he was dressed. That's one thing.
Naz, I feel like she changed a lot. Like she in a way became more of a stereotype. Like Naz, when she had began, was more of that chill kind of cool
Yep.
hangout kind of girl and whatnot. But as soon as she went back to school, she became, that the ditzy chick, the valley girl, the one that's always,
Just
kind of
clueless, basically clueless.
basically,
I'm
you
glad you
know,
out because like she didn't really have much of a personality to begin with. Like you said, she was just like the cool chick that kind of just like blended in. But now they get
right,
more of a personality. I feel like it's not the right personality because she is really like ditzy and more just like the tag along,
right,
dumb blonde or whatever you want to call it. But she
yeah,
one of the most drastic changes in personality. The cankers, they're pretty much the
the
same.
same.
Most women,
I mean, yeah, that's probably one of the few characters that actually stayed the same. I mean, Rolf, what would you say about Rolf? Because Rolf,
I feel like he was always different, a little odd, but he stayed that way. He was consistently that way. Like he was the same guy in
yeah,
the neighborhood as he was in school. So it was just like he didn't have too much of a drastic change as far as I remember. He was just Rolf.
man,
He's my favorite.
yeah,
He's actually one of my favorite characters next to number.
yeah, right. Like I said, one thing that I noticed about maybe not so much as the character, but a lot of Rolf's different, cultural differences that would be featured on the show. They I feel like those had made somewhat of a change moving forward when they had later scenes. So it seems like, I wouldn't know how to describe it. Like his customs were always odd, but some of them, you could actually kind of figure. Others, yeah, others were just kind of out there,
Yeah,
in a way. That's probably the only real difference that I've noticed with Rolf. Excuse me.
that is like literally one of the only differences I've seen. Then on top,
Yeah.
you have Kevin, who seemed to be a little bit more of a jock, which is expected because they were in school. Like it showed him, transitioning between football practice and back to class and all that type of stuff. More of like the stereotypical jerk. So
Yeah.
bigger jerk.
Like I said, right. You know, like I said, they kind of just played more into the school aspect. Like everybody had their role within the school that kind of really took a different toll on their characters, as compared to when it was just them in the neighborhood. Because me personally, like, I always felt like I had a more nostalgic feel whenever an episode from one of the earlier days would come on and they were just chilling in the neighborhood, just trying to make it to get some money to buy some jawbreakers. Jawbreakers even kind of phased out as the series went on.
That was
I
their bread.
mean, right. Like I said, they did have like a few instances where they would still try to get in with trying to get jawbreakers, holiday specials and whatnot, but yeah, even that it kind of took a back seat when they went back to school because now it was all about studying, grades, fitting in, schoolwork or school events or
Now,
something like that.
the holiday specials were like a pretty good break from all that because all of their holiday specials were pretty decent,
Right.
especially the Halloween and Christmas ones specifically. Those ones, even I think a couple of them even take. Of course, they take place during the school era, but you still get that feel of like they're still in the cul-de-sac, hanging out, having fun. Because of course they're on their school break, whatnot.
Right.
Doing the thing. It gives you that nostalgic feel, that classic touch that made Ed, Ed and Eddie what it was in the beginning. So that was pretty
Right. It kind of went back to, its original concept in a way.
cool. And I'm glad it did revert back to that because I think if they tried to drag it out with another season with them in school, ratings definitely would have dropped. And
Yeah.
Cow and Chicken was another one. That was just like it was. I feel like now I feel like it was too raunchy for kids, but back when we were kids, it was just like whatever.
Yeah. You know what? Because again, I mean, looking back at it, it really kind of, like I said, looking back at it now as an adult, I'm surprised, we got to experience a lot of what they did on the show at that age, Like I said, they only saw the parents' legs and, you know, they had exposed buttocks like everything, even in their food, like the pork butts and
But
taters. That was always, yes, that was their go-to meal for everything. And, that was kind of pork butts and taters to cow and chicken was what jawbreakers were to the Eds. Let's put it like that. I mean, there was even a time where they made ketchup like a meal in the cafeteria, but yeah, it was like the red guy was the cafeteria lady, and all they would ever serve was ketchup made whatever. And then, pork butts and taters came and saved the day in a way. Kind of,
I wonder
made,
what that was supposed to represent. Like, was it supposed to be like pork and beans or something like that?
I don't know. I think it was just some kind of meat and potatoes kind of thing, That's all I can think of because, you know, it, it was a very interesting kind of cartoon. Let's put it like that.
It was different. It was one of those standalone cartoons. I think coming only second to Courage, because Courage the Cowardly Dog was strange in its own way also. Very bizarre setting.
Right. Now
Unique.
that one, I was just about to say that one had its own unique kind of, format because, well, first of all, that was one of the only shows that I noticed that had different types of format with their animation,
3D.
despite being in the same kind of, 3D, real people, real voices, and, lips that would move on a tree, stuff like that, That in itself was something very unique, looking back at that show.
Which also
Like I
made
said,
coming from a kid's viewpoint. Because that would be one of the things I would be like, not terrified of necessarily, but I'd be kind of hesitant to watch that before any other cartoon show. Not because I didn't enjoy it, because some of the elements in there were so creepy that would kind of spook you out as a kid. But it was such an addicting show.
yeah. Now that you mentioned the reboot, they do have a reboot coming. It's like a special where Scooby-Doo meets Courage in a way. I don't know if you heard about that.
I hear about that.
Yeah, I saw on YouTube they had a trailer for Courage the Cowardly Dog and Scooby-Doo to team up because Scooby and the gang end up in nowhere city and things just go haywire, and I'm kind of interested to see how those two would connect because from what I can remember, I don't remember Courage ever being in any crossovers with cartoons.
I remember Scooby. Of course, everybody remembers the Scooby and Johnny Bravo crossover. But Courage,
Right. Yeah, like I said, everybody had their own little crossovers from time to time, like Dexter's Lab. Dexter and Powerpuff Girls. Like Dexter was one of the kids, laying down during nap time and like a quick clip, and even Dexter's Lab had what do you call it? Fred Flintstone and George Jetson just randomly appearing. They would drop little Easter eggs, on different shows and whatnot. Like I said, they're the only one, like I said, that you had mentioned that actually had a plot that went with it was the Johnny Bravo Scooby-Doo thing, because that's one of my favorite episodes, personally, as far as Johnny Bravo.
One of my favorite episodes of Johnny Bravo.
Yeah. But like I said, they would always do little Easter eggs on the other shows, but, Courage, from what I can remember, I can't remember anybody, appearing or any references to any other show because it was kind of its own little thing. So
that's going to be an interesting concept, though.
Yeah.
I want to see Eustace and Scooby interact. That's like, yeah, that's going to be the one thing I'm going to look forward to.
Yeah. I wonder,
he definitely made this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes, he was one of my favorite characters. Like I said, they all had their own individual things that I really appreciated. Like with Eustace, he was always that grumpy old man that just, you never really liked him that much because he would always pick on the dog just for no reason. But when you looked at his background, you kind of understood why, because, his mother was always mean to him. His brother was always looked at as the better brother. And,
He
like I
came.
said, you kind of understood. Yeah, he had a rough background and whatnot, you know. And despite his shortcomings, Muriel still loved him just
They
as is.
have some type of aspect about him. Cause she's
Right.
the sweetest woman.
Oh, man, yeah. Like I said, me in my real life, I don't know if I'd be able to put up with someone like Eustace and still be. She would whack him in the head with the rolling pin because he was picking on
Like
Courage, but that
I
was
do.
really the only thing. Yeah, exactly. That was always his catchphrase, And Courage, man, the dog. I got to tell you that dog was definitely one of the top dogs out of television, in my eyes, because he really, like I said, he even though like he was a dog, he still had a lot of human characteristics. His thought process, he always spoke
He
like he even
did.
had a little bit of sarcasm to his character whenever things were going wrong, and and his bouts with the computer was always funny to me. The
When
computer and him would always trade snide
he,
remarks. And because he would always go to the computer for when he ever needed some help with whatever's going on within that neighborhood.
and I think that
Because
never touched to the show because if you think about it, that was like the one piece of technology because they were in the middle of nowhere and it seemed like they were living in rural times where they basically didn't have really any technology aside from that small little 10-inch TV, the black and white TV.
right,
Cool to see him use the computer just like for solution.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of stuff that would go on, it usually was brought to them because again, it was just nowhere, like one big desert, just out of nowhere, no neighbors,
In the middle,
barely a road. Right. Yeah, they really played that aspect really good,
they,
considering, for being in the middle of nowhere, a lot sure went down. So,
it never left you bored. Like you would feel like you would be in the middle of nowhere. Like you'd be like, it's a desert, nothing's gonna go on over here. They always kept it interesting with every episode.
yeah, And
Even
like I
more
said, some of the,
girls sometimes, and they'd be like smack dab in the middle of New York City.
oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm trying to think. With the Powerpuff Girls, what was the name of the town? Townsville, right? With Townsville, you know, they always had some kind of big catastrophe with some kind of monster or, villain that would always want to destroy the town for some strange reason or whatsoever. And, the Powerpuff Girls, for what, 7, 8 years old at best, would always have to put aside what they were doing to kind of rescue the town. But one thing that kind of stood out to me was, there was a lot of people just always attacking Townsville just because,
Yeah,
like, I mean, they seem like a pretty peaceful kind of living society, outside of the movie, because that movie was kind of dark for me.
it was a little depressing, honestly. Just like the setting up, just how sinister they made everything. And I thought maybe
Oh, yeah.
reasons the villains would attack that particular spot was because the Powerpuff Girls lived there, but it wouldn't even make sense. It's like they wanted a challenge. But it's
And
why this town of all towns? They never got a call saying the next town over, there's a giant Godzilla-like creature tearing up buildings. It was always right there in Townsville. And it's
and
people move. Why don't they?
Well, I mean, that's another thing. Yeah, with all that was happening down, I would have moved out years before. And, even though they did have an episode where the Powerpuffs had moved into what was it called, Citiesville and whatnot. Yeah, and that was kind of one of those, eyebrow raising kind of episodes, because actually it kind of reminded me a little bit of the movie, because Citiesville was like a dump, just really sad and depressing, and everybody was uptight, and even when trouble came, they didn't rely on the Powerpuff Girls and whatnot, you know. And the professor, he was trying to, keep a straight face, for their sake, but truthfully, he didn't like it any more than they did. So, it was definitely an interesting concept, at least for that episode. But like I said, Powerpuff Girls pretty much stayed consistent. They always had to save the town from some kind of nemesis, either a monster or one of the main villains. And, that show in itself, it was actually pretty cool, even if it was, mostly a girl's kind of perspective, but they still had a lot of, action and impact, and it was very exciting.
I think that's how they got a lot of male viewers, because they still kept enough action in it to where, the boys could kind of like get a kick out of it. You had Mojo Jojo, the gang, Green Gang.
Right.
So they were villains.
Right.
Like, pick up some type of like male energy from that. So it's not too feminine.
Yeah,
about three.
Yeah, they brought that kind of masculinity. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Cause like I said, they had a lot of decent villains. Who else did they have? They had Fuzzy Lumpkins.
Fuzzy Lumpkins.
They had him. Like, they didn't even give him a name. They just called him him, just because he was that sinister.
That's what I'm saying. I was kind of confused on that. It sounded more like a herd of me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He had his flamboyant ways. Let's put it like that. But he was kind of an interesting kind of villain in my eyes. Like, his stories would always kind of make me think a little bit, because he had a creative side on his, depth on how he would try to take down the Powerpuff Girls. And, Mojo Jojo was always the scientific kind of, he had strategy, machines, plans, his dynamic was, he'd take them out using this, that, and the other thing, and him kind of, he always had that more psychological, manipulative, or weird kind of way. He would play with their minds more so, and use special powers to kind of, either break them up or try to, make things just difficult for whatever they were doing. Because he has some very interesting ones.
He did, though. Speaking of breaking them up, that brings me to one of my favorite episodes, to where Buttercup falls in love with Ace from the gang, Green Gang.
Oh,
So Buttercup pretty much lets the crime slide, and and it's crazy. Like, it was kind of weird, because if you think about it, Ace had to be at least 16, 17, or a grown man. Buttercup, 7 or something like that.
Really? Yeah, But I mean, that's what kind of made it kind of interesting, because he, basically playing up to Buttercup, making her kind of feel for him and whatnot. You could tell he was kind of smooth and slick and kind of sly, trying to, basically manipulate her and whatnot. That was probably one of their smarter plans back in the day, because a lot of times they would just show up and just cause trouble. That one kind of was more thought out as far as, as plot series would go on, at least involving the gang, Green Gang.
They were some of the funniest characters too, honestly.
They were, and then speaking on them, they did have an episode where you did get a chance to get to know them a little bit better when they had joined Pokey Oats, so to speak, because, the truant officer had made them go to school, even though most of them don't even look like,
kindergarten.
Preschool.
Yeah,
I know grown people over to a kindergarten school, and, you didn't expect any trouble, but, they basically played up to it, just to kind of let everybody's guard down. And you got to get to know them as people as opposed to them being villains and whatnot. But they would still escape, getting into trouble whenever the teacher wasn't looking.
That's
That one was one of them.
that's one of those episodes kind of slipped under the radar because I forgot about it until you brought it up. But that was really good. I think it was like an underrated episode.
Right. Like I
Plus,
said,
he was a villain himself. He was just like pretty much like a hillbilly. I don't know what type of animal he was supposed to be. All I remember is him like a straight up hillbilly.
Oh, yeah, I remember that because, he never really thought things out. He was just more of like one of those grizzly kind of, he was more cranky than he was evil, if you ask me, because all he would do is just sit on his porch, play his banjo, and chase off squirrels and whatnot. Exactly. Pretty much it. Yeah. Fuzzy was definitely his own little persona, if you want to call it that.
I think he was more like an misunderstood character versus like an evil character. I think, like you said, he was more just like grumpy than he was evil. And I think that was like a nice touch to put on this character. So not everybody just comes out to just portray evil. So even like the guy, the lava guy, it was one of the earlier episodes where he lived underground, like in a molten lava cave or whatever, and he couldn't sleep because like there was so much going on in the city of Townsville. Like everybody was making noise. So he finally rose up from his sleep from years, and he was like, well, everybody just shut up. He was like a big lava man. So he was made out of lava. And then, like, at the end of the episode, you find out all he wanted was to sleep. I just want to sleep.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I think that was a Dial M for Monkey episode.
What? It might have.
Yeah.
It was. You're right. You're definitely right. It was. It was a monkey episode.
Right, but I do remember that plot, because again, with Cartoon Network, with those shows, a lot of people that, they were pretty creative, but they were still kid-friendly kind of villains, Nobody was ever that over the top, like I would, really dark. Like outside Powerpuff Girls movie, nothing was that dark as far as, different character villains throughout most of the shows that they had during the cartoon lineup. But I remember that. One thing I did remember about the Powerpuff Girls that you brought up as far as, misunderstood villains, I remember there was this giant green slime thing looking for a cat. Now that I remember because, like I said, as soon as you said, he was looking for something, it just kind of popped in my head. It was like, oh, yeah, I do remember because he just went through town just terrorizing the place because he was just trying to find his cat. And the Powerpuff Girls, instead of beating him up, they decided to help him look. And eventually they found him in a very awkward position, stuck between his butt cheeks. But, at least he found his cat. That's all I can say.
I do remember that was one of the earlier episodes, too, from what I remember.
Yeah, like I said, Powerpuff Girls was definitely one of those shows where, even though it was more of a girl's perspective, you still made it cool even for the guys. So that was definitely one of its more unique aspects.
I think Cartoon Fridays as a whole just like branded a whole new definition for what cartoons were supposed to be. And I think when did it really come to an end? Because, we had like typical lineups. We get new episodes every now and then, different shows. The bumper, right. The crossover commercials and everything like that. Those are pretty cool too.
Right. Like I said, as far as Cartoon Fridays, I don't think it ever ended until they went from Fridays to Thursdays, because I remember there was a stint. But this was like way back in 2004, 2005 maybe, when they started transitioning from Fridays to Thursdays and whatnot.
Is that at the Samurai Jack came along, or that was probably a little bit after? I think Samurai Jack like early 2000.
Right, that show was definitely like one of the early 2000s. Now that you mention it, I do remember that show. That one actually was a little bit dark for, a kid's cartoon because, that giant, what would you call him, Aku or whatever, seemed kind of, yeah, he seemed very, ooh,
Like
a little strange, like, ooh, yeah, a little creepy,
he's supposed to be like some type of entity, like some type of evil spirit, I guess. It looked like one of those those Chinese dragons you see on Chinese New Year.
Right.
Sort of
Me personally, I can't really say I was that big on Samurai Jack, because it's like I said, I never.
From there besides Aku and Jack.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. I saw some of the fights. I always just wondered, like, when would they get to the big fight between, Jack and the Aku and whatnot. So I don't know if I ever, finished that series, but it was actually pretty popular considering.
It was. I think they even revamped it and put it on Adult Swim at some point. But I can't even remember, to be honest with you. But it was.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, like I said, the only time they ever really got more catered to action and whatnot really came on Saturdays when they did the Toonami runs. Or no, wait, no. First it started off. It was either afternoons. Yeah, it was an afternoon block when Toonami used to come on. Then it was a weekend special whenever things were like 12 midnight and whatnot. Because Toonami, that was definitely more of a cater to action and violence and everything like that. Dragon Ball Z was probably its most successful.
Oh yeah, Dragon Ball Z. They had a couple shows I remember. There was Dragon Ball Z, of course, Dragon Ball series. They also had a show called Tenchi Muyo. They had Sailor Moon.
Right.
What was it? Oh, Gundam Wing, the original Gundam Wing. And those were kind of like, I won't say I was a big anime fanatic, but as far as those shows, the shows that came on Toonami, I definitely always tune into. And that's when I was kind of, into what Toonami had to offer, even though I wasn't a big anime person.
Yeah, like I said, me, I would always, jump for joy whenever a Dragon Ball Z episode, because they always kept you going. The action was there, all the characters had, they had their own stories and, different trials and tribulations, and, villains had their own backstories, even, like I said,
started off on.
I'm sorry, say what?
When I first started watching Dragon Ball Z, I remember Frieza was the first villain that came to mind. He was the first one I started off on.
Me, I remember when they had started the battles with Vegeta. Like I said, most of what I remember going back then was them preparations for them. Like I said, I didn't get to see the very first episode until later on in life because I didn't realize, the whole situation with Goku's brother Raditz, is how he died in the first place.
Because
like I said, it started off, Raditz was looking for Goku to, join him and the other Saiyans and whatnot. Like I said,
the ball hit one, I remember him.
Yeah, Nappa. Like I said, Raditz had came to Earth to, convince Goku, and then in the fight between him, Goku, and Piccolo ended up killing both him and Goku and whatnot. Like I said, I came along right around the time like Goku was trying to get to the other world to meet with King Kai, and how Gohan had to live on his own trying to survive and then train under Piccolo.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, like I said, he had to go to the other world and travel Snake Way and whatnot, and there's all this trouble just getting there. And then, when he finally got there, he had to deal with gravity and whatnot. And like I said, that's when I kind of came on to the scene with Dragon Ball Z, because that was like one of my favorites out of all Cartoon Network shows, like just in general.
It's so much when I first started watching it, but you just get like hooked into it, and then you got to get saga after saga.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then, you get excited for the next episode, see how the battle's turning out or see which battle comes next and whatnot. And then, you know, like I said, it was always a constant power struggle between good and evil in such a way it kind of got your heart racing. And then they had the different voice, they had the voice thing where different companies, like I said, were part of making the dub because Dragon Ball Z was a Japanese show that they brought to America.
And I know
Like I
fundamental.
said, the first, yeah, there was Funimation, and then there was this other company called like Saban. The people that produce for Digimon and
Oh
I
yeah.
guess Power Rangers. Yeah, they did voiceovers for the original airing of Dragon Ball Z and whatnot, and a lot of their character voices became famous through other shows and whatnot. Like I said, Monster Rancher is probably the only show I can think of there where those voices from the original Dragon Ball Z were similar to the ones, on Monster Rancher. That was just something I noticed, looking back later. But like I said, yeah, then became the whole debate, like which one was better, the Ocean or the Funimation, because then Funimation had picked it up and then, they pretty much took over from there. And that series progressed on to different villains and whatnot. It was like kind of in between like the Frieza saga or just when they got to Namek.
Oh yeah, Planet Dynamics. Was
Yeah.
it Saga or was it just the Frieza Saga? I can't even remember. It was.
Yeah, they had like three main sagas when the show began. It was, Battle with the Saiyans, which eventually ended with Vegeta. And then there was going to Planet Namek all the way up to about the Ginyu Force. And then Frieza was like its own season. And my God, that was one of the longest battles I can remember growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, 4 different transformations, and every one of them was tough to beat until someone new came on the scene.
Definitely.
And Frieza was pretty sinister, just
Oh, it was
as
too.
a whole.
I think Cell was another one of the long-lasting saga, almost as long as the Frieza saga.
Yeah, because then after they beat Frieza, then they went back to Earth, and Trunks had appeared when Frieza
That's
came to Earth.
Trunk saga.
Yeah.
Here, I thought he was so cool.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering, like, the thing that really got me was how they would always advertise his character on the credits and whatnot. I didn't get to know him until they actually played out his saga and whatnot. It was a little short one, but it basically got you ready for the next big one, which was the androids and everything.
But the credits for the Trunk saga, it was always epic. Even the music was epic behind it.
Oh my gosh, the music for Dragon Ball Z, trust me, it was its own, it had its own thing to it,
It did have a little rings. Oh, speaking of, I know this off topic, but fun fact. So the show Gundam Wing, the original anime, um, 2 of the voices from that show were actually voiced by Matt Hill and Sam Vincent, who played Ed and Double D on Ed, Ed and Eddie.
Right.
I think
Wow, I didn't even know that.
yeah, I found that out. I actually found that out through a rap song because
Oh, for real?
and the voice sounded familiar. It sounded like Ed's voice, so I looked up like the sample from the beginning of the song, and it said it was a sample from Wing with Matt Hill and Sam Vincent's voice. So it was like Sam. It was like Sam and Matt talking back and forth, and this sounded just like Ed and Double D. I said, this is from Ed and Eddie, so I was kind of confused. So it was pretty cool.
You know what? Now that you think about it, I think those 2 character voices did work for Saban back then. I really think they did because Double D's voice actually appeared in Monster Rancher. He was one of the main characters. He was Hare, the boxing rabbit. I mean, if you go back and you listen to the voice, you can see, you can hear the Double D in that voice. So now that you mention it, yeah, I think those people that did the show for Gundam Wing were probably the same people that worked for Saban that did those other shows and whatnot. So that's probably why the voices probably sound the same Now that I think about it.
That's actually really dope.
Yeah.
That's so dope, man. We got a lot to
Like I
do
said,
for call. I'm telling you.
oh yeah, trust me, yeah, there's plenty of them. Like I said, voices from Ed and Eddie, voices from what Powerpuff Girls, voices from Cow and Chicken. Yeah,
Yep.
there were plenty of good voices out there that really kind of make this era so special and whatnot. Pardon me for one quick second.
Oh,
Pardon me. Every day. All right. Thanks. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm under quarantine right now, so. But yeah, you were saying, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the voiceovers. Yeah, there were so many good voices that kind of brought these characters to life. They're so distinct that like I said, if we heard them out in public, we'd know exactly who they are. So, like I said, there's so many that I'd love to go over just from the retro roll call. So that's
and
definitely going to be an interesting one.
this is just like a chunk of it. We still have like Nickelodeon voices, Disney
Right.
Channel. There's like so many that go unnoticed and unrecognized that we just want to give like special shout outs to. This is only the tip of the iceberg right here. And that's the thing that's so great about this, not only the podcast, but the channel in general, is it's like pretty much our time machine. Like I feel like the channel is pretty much like our time machine. So people are able to child or that at least have that same joy that they used to feel back when the shows actually used to air.
Think you're free. Yeah.
Can
I'm
you hear me?
sorry. What were you saying? Yeah.
Oh, so I was saying, so basically, this is just like a chance. It's like a time machine, basically. Like, so everybody gets a chance to reconnect with that joy, that innocence from, back in the day when your favorite shows would come on. Because we really don't have resources besides YouTube and a couple of streaming services. But the Cartoon Network app only offers so much. Paramount Plus only offers so much. Disney Plus only offers so much. It's just like back to tackle pretty much just like everything and put it all in one channel. I think that's something pretty special. I think a lot of people are gonna appreciate that.
Yeah. If they came up with a '90s streaming service for the '90s, I guarantee you, man, that would probably be one of the most popular ones. Like I would put it up there with Netflix and Hulu and whatnot.
Oh,
At
definitely.
least I would.
Yeah, I
Like that's
downloaded it.
yeah, shoot, I would pay for it. Yeah, I would definitely pay for it. Like I said, Toonami had a lot of good stuff. One other show that just came to mind, Reboot. That was one of the Toonami classics right there. That one, even though it
What
was
was it called?
short-lived, Reboot. It was like,
Reboot
it, yeah,
robots. Yeah,
yeah. It was kind of like robotic. It was kind of 3D, kind of robotic, but they did have some humans in it. But they were kind of. It was an advanced society, from what I can remember. They always fought, this robotic kind of dude. I guess I can't remember anybody's name. I
I can't.
remember
I
the
remember the show.
dude, right? I remember the girl and whatnot. Well, I remember characters by faces, but like I said, I can't name any of them. But that was actually a pretty interesting show. I need to go back and kind of look back on some of those because,
Yeah, it was so short lived.
right. Like I said, are there any other shows from the '90s that we didn't quite hit up yet?
Yeah, I
I'm sorry,
remember
what'd you say?
when that was I wasn't the biggest fan of the show, but what I did appreciate was like the unique concept of like,
Oh,
girl from big city, the Big Apple, stuck on the island. I forgot, did she get stranded out there or what? Was she just visiting?
I think she was like some kind of foreign exchange student, believe it or not,
Probably.
and she had to,
It was something.
yeah, she had to adapt. Yeah, it was definitely something different because, like I said, adjusting on living on like a deserted island, I don't know if I could really do that. And the only thing I can remember was that they always made a meal out of coconuts. Coconuts was pretty much the only thing there.
But what I remember about
It was,
her, she never complained. I don't ever remember her complaining about her condition or her circumstances. Like she knew what she was getting into. She didn't complain about the lack of technology, about the differences in culture, the differences in like what they ate. She was always real chill, and that's why I think I liked her character the most out of all three, out of Mike, Lou, and all. Because Mike was just like she was different. She was cut different, and one of those
yeah,
remind me of shows like whatever happened to Robot Jones. But that one was actually one of my personal favorites because of the aesthetic. It was made in
yeah,
the but gave you that 70s vibe just with the
right,
animation. Like that I'm
yeah.
building on
I'm
Capitol.
saying, yeah, because that one. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
You remember that I'm just a build on Capitol Hill? It had that type of animation style and it just gave you that nostalgic type feel. Like Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah, Schoolhouse Rock. I remember that. Yeah. Now that I think about it, they did have that kind of animation style because it was kind of old school, kind of, like I said, I remember the show vaguely, mostly because, it was kind of a robot kid trying to fit in and be like a real boy kind of scenario. And there was always the bullies that tried to mess with him or do something. And I remember them always having like a segment where they tried to educate you or something like at the end or somewhere in between, or they always had some little sidebar about some invention or something that was there.
I remember that. That's what made the show unique also. It was so many different aspects about it. The animation style is automatically going to draw you in because it just makes you feel like this warm, comfortable feeling when you see it. Oh, I don't know how we forgot to mention this. Code name Kids Next Door.
Yeah. I remember when they Yeah, I remember when they first started advertising for it, I thought that show was definitely gonna be really cool, just the vibe that I got. It was kind of like kids, being secret agents and everything. That was actually kind of a cool deal.
And it lived up to the hype. It really did live up to the hype. That's one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows of all time.
Yeah. Like I said, I watched the show when it came out and whatnot. I thought the first episode was really like the best one, you know. Um, I really kind of appreciated it more when I was a little bit older, or just maybe more as nostalgic, because I can't really say it was one of my favorite growing up, because like I said, I can't really say, like, after the first episode, can't really say I followed it too much. But when I got a little bit older and it was a rerun, I kind of started getting into it, and it really kind of reminded me why the show was actually as hype as it was when it first came on.
That's true. That's definitely true. But
And
I'm surprised it stood out the way it did to me because it was actually one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows to air. And I think it was because the diversity of the characters. Like you had number one, he was the leader, the bald headed leader, always
right,
self. Then you had number two, which I believe is the bigger, the heavy set one. He was always
right,
the sometimes the comic relief stuff like that. Really just a genuine funny guy. Then you had number three. She was like the naive, ditzy type girl. She was real sweet though. I think she was Japanese or not, some type of Asian. She was definitely
yeah,
Asian. Then you had number four. He was from Australia because he had that
right.
heavy accent. You could never really see his eyes except on like occasions. And he was more like that
You
Tom.
know,
He was
you
different.
know something? I noticed something about that. Yeah, with the exception of number three, you never really got to see any of their eyes. Not much,
Don't.
at least.
You don't see number
I
one.
just realized
Yes, he's on. Number
the
two,
black glasses, the goggles.
number
Number
five.
4 had the bangs.
Yeah.
Yeah, number 5 had the hat, and I just noticed that, you know.
That's
Yeah, I gotta say, out of those, number 5 had to be my favorite character, just because she didn't take no stuff from nobody. Uh,
so smooth too. She was played by
yeah,
number.
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, she did a good job with that character. You know, that was one of my personal favorites on the roll call because she done a lot as far as voiceovers and just her career in general. So
When I
definitely a shout out.
there was this girl that was in the Navy with me. She's like, I still keep in touch with her to this day. Her name is McCrimmon. Black girl, like a ponytail and everything. They kind of had similar voices. So me and my friend, we used to tease her. And every time we see her, we'd be like, number 5.
I probably would have liked to meet her then. Yeah, I
Cool.
probably would have liked to meet her. But I mean, yeah, like I said, she's
Shout
my
out on the
favorite.
first episode, but I forgot. I actually forgot the name of her brand because she's like a actor student or a film student, and she's acted in like a small piece. But I probably shout her out on the next episode. I can't think off the top of what her film name is, but she's cool.
Like I said, yeah, that one was a pretty interesting, concept as far as, cartoons back then, since it was one of the more later ones, because like I said, it kind of transitioned between different eras, with the original cartoons and then the new breed that started to show up afterwards. Like, what's another one? Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends
Well,
and Camp Lazlo and stuff like that. Yeah. Like I said, I kind of put, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Foster's Home kind of grew on me a little bit. Camp Lazlo grew on me a little bit. But Foster's Home a
Yeah.
little bit, Camp Lazlo. But those were decent shows. I give.
Yeah, like I said, me personally, if I could, I would have liked to, been part of, Foster's Home for Imaginary. I'm pretty sure I can come up with plenty of characters and whatnot, but they had a kind of a cool kind of vibe with that show, Like I said, they fostered for imaginary people, and it's kind of, they were living kind of good now that you think about it, because they lived in a mansion, they had service, they had 3 caretakers, and I'm like, well, I might rent me a room up there if they really, got them set like that. Yeah, but that show did kind of grow on me too.
It did. That was a pretty good show for what it was. Like I think the first couple episodes didn't really draw me in, but as the series went along, that's when I was like, okay, this is a pretty decent show. I like the idea of it and everything. Camp Lazlo was like one of those shows where you could kind of take it or leave it, but it wasn't a bad show at all. It definitely like really funny moments, but it's like one of those shows that you can still live without and be okay.
Yeah, I felt like it kind of catered more to the next generation.
Yeah, it really did. Just like Flapjack and Chowder, both shows.
Right.
I was never really into Flapjack. Saw a few episodes of Chowder, and it was like not bad. It's cool for the next generation, but it didn't hold a candle to the '90s cartoons. Now, what I will say though, Adventure Time and Regular Show are 2 shows that I do like actually tip my hat to, because those are both well-written shows, pretty decent. Maybe could pass Regular Show. Maybe could pass as a '90s cartoon if it would have come out.
Yeah, you made a good point there, because I remember when that show it came out, it was actually pretty popular, especially in high school.
Oh
Believe it
yeah,
or not, everybody was quoting them or, talking about them. And, me, I only watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes at best. And I'd kind of seen what the hype was about, It kind of gave you a sense of, I can see how it would be catered to the next generation, but it did kind of pique my interest a little bit.
yeah, mine too. I tried to keep up with the series. It did get more ridiculous as the seasons went on, but it wasn't like to the point where
Right.
like SpongeBob or something like that. It actually like kept consistency. Same thing with Adventure Time. Adventure Time is one of those shows that you can tell it caters to the new generation, but it does it well to the point where 90s kids can actually, like, you know, kind of connect with it also.
Yeah, kind of get into it. Yeah, I've seen Adventure Time. It wasn't really my taste, so to speak, but like I said, that one was another one because what those hats became a trend. You know, the little hat that he had that was like,
And yeah,
yeah, like I said, it was always the hat and the dog backpack that became a trend later on, and I was like, well, I guess that's for this new generation what cartoons was for us. So.
yeah, I can't argue with that. But these other shows, nah, they need to cut that out. Gumball is like okay, Gumball's. I watched Gumball with my little brother a few times, and that kind of grew. If it's on, like if I just turn on TV and it's already on Cartoon Network and Gumball's on, I won't like go out my way to change the channel. I sit there and watch it, but it's not like something. Oh, Gumball's about to come on. I gotta tune into it. Now, Steven Universe. That's actually one show that I did really get into. Like that was actually a show that could have came out in the 90s.
Yeah. Like I said, I noticed, like I said, I really kind of cut off after a certain, time period with, watching just cartoons in general. But like I said, I still kept up with the trends and kind of feel like I knew like which show was hot right now. And yeah, that was definitely one of them. Another show, I just had it off the top of my head. I think it was one that you already mentioned. It was Gumball and something else.
Gumball, regular show, and Adventure Time. Then
Yeah,
Beck, Chowder,
Yeah.
Clarence.
Um.
I didn't like Clarence at all.
Ooh.
That was trash. It was like a show called Clarence.
Yeah. I don't remember a show about Clarence. You remember that show, Shaolin Showdown?
Shaolin Showdown with the
It
Asian.
was basically about, yeah, it
Yeah,
was like an Asian group of martial artists. I didn't really follow that one too much, but you know, I thought from what I've seen, it wasn't too bad. Just again, wasn't really something I would go out of my way to go see. But that was one that kind of stood out to me as far as the rest of them would go. You know.
yeah, that wasn't my cup of tea either. Honestly, it kind of reminded me of American Dragon Jake Long in a way.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, like the cartoon.
Yeah, it was kind of like Cartoon Network version of that. Yeah. Um, I know there's like some other shows. I feel like there was a few that kind of got missed. Oh, here's one. Grim and Evil.
Grim. Oh,
Uh,
Billy and Man. Billy and Mandy.
yeah,
Okay, that is.
yeah. That one was actually pretty popular through What a Cartoon. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's what.
remember.
Oh, what a cartoon! Those were like. I vaguely remember what a cartoon. I remember some of the cartoons from there, but I remember Billy and Mandy sticking out. Hence, why they got their own show, like why they got their own programming. And Billy and Mandy was one of those type of shows that like a lot of a lot of boys were really interested in that. Like you wouldn't find too many girls that would watch it. It would be some, but mainly when I would go to school, my friends, the guys would be talking about Billy and Mandy. The girls wouldn't really be discussing it too much, but that's something that that
Um, Me personally, I didn't think much of it when I was watching it, but I kind of see how it kind of impacted. It was still pretty popular considering, I was really hyped when they had started promoing it, but when I watched the show, it wasn't, I can't say it wasn't the best. It was like after the first episode, it kind of just wasn't really
was average.
for me. Yeah. It
Wasn't
was
even
like, as soon as
I was just a big fan of the Grim Reaper. That's pretty much
Yeah,
flow for me because I think he was the funniest character out of everybody. Him and Billy's dad. But other than that, the show.
yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, I kind of felt the same because the show wasn't really, it wasn't my favorite, but, they had their characters and their moments. They definitely had some good music, I'll give them that, because they did an episode that was kind of a thriller kind of tribute.
I
It was
remember.
about this monster that it, like, feeds on people's brains, and they made a song with a real band out of it. And, that was probably one of the better episodes.
I remember that one. I remember that. I think I remember most of the episodes like pretty vividly, but I was just never a big fan of Billy and Mandy as characters. It was literally always just the Grim Reaper. You know how you have those shows where you can tolerate to watch it just because one character kind of makes the show? I think that was one of those cases, which is probably why we forgot to even mention it because it wasn't those shows just like, oh, I got to mention it. It stands out because it's unique, but every time
Right.
show is kind of unique in its own way. This one just didn't really like grab as many laughs as like Ed, Ed and Eddie, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter. It's just
Right. You know what I'm saying? A lot of those shows, like after like 2002, in a way, they really didn't hit the same
they
in my eyes, as far as watching cartoons. Let me see. Were there any others that we didn't really talk about?
pretty
You know
sure
what? There are. I'm sorry. Say what?
I'm pretty sure it's some we missed. I can't even think of them right
Well,
now.
thankfully, I got a couple that kind of got skipped over. Batman and Batman Beyond.
Batman.
Now, I know, yeah, that was more something my father was definitely into, at least as far as Batman, because that's his thing. He liked the original Batman, so the cartoon did kind of cater to him. I watched the show and whatnot, and I thought it was actually pretty good for the most part. Again, wasn't my favorite, but it was something that I could follow easily,
Yeah, Batman.
just keep up with the plot because it had action and whatnot in it.
Exactly. I wasn't really into superhero shows myself, but Batman Beyond was like one of the exceptions because I think the regular Batman was cool, but when they made Batman Beyond, I think that catered to a younger audience and it kind of still connected with the older, it kind of bridged that gap between the older and younger audiences. And it did it pretty. I can't remember an episode verbatim from Batman Beyond, but I remember it was one of the good series in the whole Batman run. One of the best
Yeah.
series.
I piggyback off of that. It kind of reminds me of another show. What do you call it? Teen Titans, like
Teen,
the original one.
the original before Teen Titans Go for this new generation, they had Teen
Yeah,
Titans, of course, Robin, Starfire, Cyborg, and Raven, and Beast Boy.
yeah,
And I think they tackled
yeah. Like,
his issues, but they did it in like a teenage sort of way, which made it relatable to like, us back then as like 90s kids. But I don't even want to mention Teen Titans Go because everybody probably already knows what that is. It's not even worth talking about in my honest opinion. But Teen
yeah.
Titans itself was definitely a gem. And I think it gets overlooked and overshadowed by this new crap this generation. Man, let me stop saying crap because find Teen Titans Go
Well,
treasure right now. And I
I mean, for the, like I said, for the most part, I really can't say that I'm even that big a fan of Teen Titans, the original, but I can see why people felt the newer show kind of took away from the original, idea and whatnot. It just became more, what's the word I'm looking for? More comical or just a softer, a lighter version
yeah,
of the actual show versus the more, rough action that it originally portrayed. So let me see. Was there any other stars or shows? I know we breached on Superman a little bit. I know we mentioned Tex Avery. Did you watch any of the spin-off shows like Flintstones Kids and Tom and Jerry Kids?
I never really watched Tom and Jerry Kids. I saw Flintstone Kids a few times. It was cool, but
Um,
it wasn't my cup of tea. That it was a good show, but it didn't really like compare to the original Flintstones, in my opinion.
yeah. What about? Oh, here's one. Captain Planet. What'd you think of
Cap,
that one?
he's a hero. Captain Planet used to be.
Oh yeah, that theme song. Yeah, that was iconic back in the day. But I think that one was actually that was one of those first shows that I can think of for our generation that kind of promoted a bigger cause than just entertainment because they always talked about different ways to help fight pollution, make the planet better, conserve energy and whatnot. So I really tip my hat to that one for, bringing in outside real life issues that could help, carry on into, making the world a better place. I
They
think that was one of the few that
special.
actually did that. Yeah.
They did. I think they catered well to the green thumbers out there, and the after
Oh yeah.
school. I think it did. Like at the time, I wasn't really paying attention to the cause because I'm still a kid. I'm just looking more into the action versus the message. But I can appreciate that they did have a message that came with it, whether as kids we grasped it or not. Because at the end of the day, a lot of shows didn't really have messages to send out there. It was just basically get a laugh out there.
Just for
Yeah,
entertainment.
just for laugh.
Yeah.
It was just to get a kick.
Yeah. I thought that one was pretty nice.
And
Let's just let me see. Let me see. I feel like I'm missing a few. Did we ever go over anything for oh, here's a nice little one. Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries. I don't know if that was the 90s. That was more kind of like 2000, maybe.
I don't even think I've seen one episode of that, to be honest with you.
I've seen the show before, but I can't really remember. So I guess that one's a no. Space Ghost. Like, you remember when he had the talk show?
I remember when it was more aimed towards adults.
Like, he would be a TV host instead of a superhero.
Oh yeah, Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Right. Yeah. Because around that time, now that you mention it, it kind of, like I said, by early 2000, they had transitioned from, just all kid shows to adult cartoons too, because that's when stuff like Adult Swim it came around. And
Right.
that's when the adult theme kind of kicked in. And that's when we got into shows that were before, before our age group, let's put it like that. Because, like I said, one that goes without saying Family Guy. So.
Oh yeah, Family Guy. Some of the original Adult Swim programming, like home movies, Aqua Teen Hunger,
That one.
stuff like that.
Yeah. I wasn't really big fan of Adult Swim when it first came out, but when I got older, I really appreciated it because I could understand it a little bit better. So home movies actually became one of my favorites because it was one of my sister's favorites.
It was actually
So,
good. It was what Brendan, Jason, and Melissa. Coach McGurk was my favorite.
Oh my gosh, he was hilarious when I, started really getting into the show. Like he made that show pretty popular.
He did.
Yeah.
And he branched off multiple different voices too, so that was pretty cool. Aqua Teen Hunger Force is my favorite show on Adult Swim.
Yeah, for me that was kind of one of my one of my guilty pleasures. That one and Futurama.
Futurama was dead.
Yeah, that one was like for Fox and whatnot, but they did bring it over as part of Adult Swim. That and King of Hill, which was another Fox show that they actually played on Adult Swim.
I think King of the Hill was wholesome enough to be viewed with kids. Maybe not watch like just kids by themselves, but if you're watching it with a kid, I feel like it's cool because King of the Hill is like it always had a PG rating. It was never too vulgar, but it still fit in the Adult Swim category, which is pretty cool.
Right, because they had a lot of adult concepts on that show, and it actually became pretty popular in my house. because a lot of my family, mostly my older sister, yeah, she really got into it when, we were older. So, but yeah, that was one.
It's such
Like I
a
said, the
form,
adult,
but it's so easy to get into.
right? Yeah, because it still had that family aspect, but still, it's adult enough to pass as far as Adult Swim.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
Exactly.
And one of my favorite shows that I actually got into from Adult Swim was Case Closed. That was like a murder mystery show. That was a cartoon, man. I gotta tell you, I
Kind of
was just. It was about a little boy. It was about a teen detective who was turned into a little boy due to some poison that was supposed to kill him. And now, since he's a kid, he has to try to figure out a way to get back to his original body. And he uses all these inventions from his science friend to kind of help a lackluster detective become, a success so he can get leads on people who did it to him. And that was really one of my personal favorites as far as, shows on Adult Swim. Like that one I actually got into on its own because of the murder mystery aspect. It was like an advanced, kind of Scooby Doo in a way.
that sounds pretty dope. I don't even actually look it up so I can see some clips. I remember C Lab 2021.
Yeah, that one to me, um, like I said, that one wasn't really one of my favorites because I can't really say I got into it, but I know my sister, she liked it.
It was decent. I just liked the theme song. I wasn't a big fan of the show itself. I know it was based off a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, C Lab 2020.
Yeah.
So I like how they kind of tweaked the concept a little bit to make it more adult oriented while still keeping
Right.
the same animation style. But as far
Yeah.
well, that pretty much did it for me. Before the Family Guys and the American Dads and Futuramas and all,
Yeah.
you had home movies, Aqua Teen, Space Ghost, Coast to Coast.
Right.
Oh, the Boondocks, of course.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that one definitely catered to, the black, you know,
Oh yeah,
audience.
like demographic, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. That was definitely one of the,
Oh, my boy Rail saying, What's up, bro?"
and,
I be forgetting we're on live sometimes.
well, hey, at least we know we got somewhat of an audience.
Yeah,
I mean, like I said, we still getting there.
that's pretty. Yeah, we're
Um,
building up. This is just the beginning. This is what episode 2, and
yeah.
so right now we're on the topic of the big three. Just so the people out there who are just tuning in or kind of got lost on the nostalgic trip. So what we're doing is doing like something that we call a big three, where we talk about the big three networks. Hence, right now we're talking about Cartoon Network. Next episode we're going to discuss Nickelodeon. Then we're going
Right.
to Disney and leave that as the final one. Not because it's like the least popular, but because I think we resonate personally. Me and Ace Master resonate more with Nick and Cartoon Network, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people do. There's nothing against Disney. But like some networks have a bigger effect.
Yeah.
Cartoon
Like I said, yeah, me personally, I'm kind of right there with you with Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon because those were more, cartoon cater friendly and whatnot. Well, then again, Disney was cartoon
Oh,
oriented. It was just, it
yeah,
struck more, I said those other two channels struck more with me as far as, with really stuff that I could follow. But they did have some good stuff though.
that's what I give to Disney Channel. I think they had a healthy mix of live action and also animation. So I give them that. I think it was a little bit more well balanced than Nick was as far as like live action shows. Because it was like
Yeah, like,
contrast. It was like an equal amount of both, which Nick kind of did.
yeah,
But I think I got to give it to Disney on that one. But that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that on the next episode.
yeah. Mhm. Think
What else?
of any other cartoons that might have. Oh yeah. There were a few that kind of came to mind. Did we ever talk about that show, Time Squad?
I don't think we did.
Yeah, that one was actually pretty good in its own right because I remember that one came on around when whatever happened to Robot Jones, it came around.
Yeah.
So I actually like that one.
It had the kid with the glasses,
All
and
right, Otto.
Otto, that's his name. What was the guy, the space guy? I can't even describe him.
Uh, like Buck Tug Russell or something.
Yeah,
Like a big guy with the chin and
yeah.
the
So
suit. Yeah, that was him. I forgot the name. There was a robot on there too that was kind of uptight. I thought he was actually pretty funny in his own right. But yeah,
that show
that
in
was
general,
one of those shows.
and I'm glad you brought it up because I totally forgot about this show. Not that it wasn't worth watching, it's just one of those shows that didn't last too long, so it kind of slips under the radar.
Yeah.
It's wish I did more research on before we started the episode because I definitely want to dive deep into that because I'm pretty sure if I watch an episode or two, I'll definitely remember because it weren't many episodes to the series. So
Right. It was mostly about them doing time travel to correct things that may have gone awry in a certain time period. So you got kind of a history lesson with it along the way, but it had its own funny animated spin to it, which was actually pretty good for a concept. It was definitely something unique in a
it,
way.
that's what I liked about the show as well. It was just it stood for something a little different, kind of like Captain Planet, bringing in first
Right.
world issues, and then them giving you a little history Easter egg. So maybe if you have
Right.
more to do, you can kind of cheat your way through and not even have to read. Just watch an episode right there.
Yeah.
Learn the class the next
Trust me.
something.
If only, shoot, I can't imagine how many times I would have been able to, like I said, if they really covered history and that kind of aspect, I feel like it definitely would have made my life a little bit easier, at least in school.
Exactly.
There was some other shows too. Oh yeah, there was Pokemon. I know
That
that one didn't. Yeah, they had a run. It was them, Card Captors, and one more, Yu-Gi-Oh. Yeah. Because I remember they had this whole trading card kind of phase that was going on back in the day.
that was
You had Pokemon cards or Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and that
it,
really kind of helped advertise for the shows and whatnot. And Card Captors, I can't really remember anything about them having merchandise, but I do remember the show.
I remember Pokemon was one of my favorite. I think that's I think I got into Pokemon before I even got into Dragon Ball Z, honestly, because I
Yeah,
still my game to this day. I keep my old Android phone. It doesn't have service, but just because of the fact I figured out how to download the Game Boy Advance version of Pokemon, so I still keep it.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that because that was definitely one of the popular games for Game Boy and whatnot.
Still
Because
is.
you would always have Pokemon battles and whatnot, and you would try to connect with your friends.
With your
They
friends.
would have, yeah. And then if it wasn't, Game Boy, it was the trading card games where they sit down and do battles at recess and whatnot. And trust me, I never really did play like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh as far as cards, but yeah, I've seen a lot of them battles. They were tense, and that was just playing cards, but that was a thing. Hey, shoot, like I said, if a game was going, if you weren't part of it, you were in the audience.
We got real too, especially with the games. I remember when me and my stepsister, we both got we're like a year apart, and I think we got Pokemon games the same day from my grandparents. And I think she got gold version, I got silver version. And she had Pokemon that I really wanted. It was like rare and it was hard to find in the game I had. So I was so desperate to get that Pokemon. When she fell asleep, I grabbed that cord, connected our Game Boys, and I sent Pokemon over to my game.
Oh man, well, I gotta say that kudos to you because that was actually a pretty good strategy. I will say that.
I felt bad. It
You
was
know,
Even.
But I mean, hey, that's the thing. That's the only way you get them is if you traded them or if you earned them in some kind of battle. I guess
It's
I don't know.
trade that Pokemon for nothing.
Yeah.
She noticed it went missing, of course. But eventually,
Well,
the
I
show,
mean, hey,
it was like a breath of fresh air. I think the show was
yeah,
nostalgic.
yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, like I said, I watched it up till the original 150. Then they kind of broke off a little bit when they started adding more
Yeah,
creatures to the show and whatnot. And that's kind of when it fell out for me personally.
I said 150 is enough. And when you start adding more, but besides that Mew and Mewtwo, when you start adding more, it's like, okay, yeah, it's kind of ran its
Yeah,
course. If I can't do the
it kind of made,
Pokemon, then it's over.
yeah,
You
like I
remember
said, yeah, they kind of
150
made the other one.
rapper?
Oh yeah, they had the rap. I remember that. Yeah, every episode would be a piece of it, and
Yeah,
then if you go on YouTube, you can find the whole thing with all 150 and whatnot, and
it was kind of creative how they could name them all and make it rhyme.
yeah, that was actually pretty cool.
That was dope.
That was one of the cool aspects of the show.
And
But
the
yeah,
who
like I said,
before every
mhm.
commercial
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. It's like the Who's That Pokemon thing,
comes back
the
on, every
bumper.
on it was. Yeah,
Yeah, that was actually something that was pretty cool as far as advertising and getting people excited for the next, episode
it
and
was.
whatnot. I think we got a Pokemon tape buried somewhere in storage, so
I wouldn't be surprised. I probably got some somewhere.
yeah.
But that was one of the great shows. Doesn't really have to be discussed too much. You know, Pokemon is still like a running thing. They're just like, again, they're catering to this new,
Mhm.
got new characters, probably new Pokemon species, different leagues, but it's all the
Oh
same
yeah, trust
concept.
me, it kind of branched out like way, like over the top,
Which
after a
thousand by now?
certain time. Yeah, like I said, I couldn't keep up with that many, to be honest with you. Like I said, they would need to do some, kind of damage control with that many, just running around because it's not so much as just how many species, but how many they had. So it was kind of like, yeah, it became a lot.
Exactly. But that was one of my favorites. Yeah, any other ones?
I mean, for the most part, like I said, we've pretty much covered most of the good ones from Cartoon Network. I'm trying to think whether any others that might have mentioned or briefly. I
Brains.
mean, there was. I'm sorry, say what?
I was thinking Brains. I can't think of any either. I think we did cover up like pretty much every cartoon.
Yeah. Like I said, I had a couple. Mm, I know we had mentioned Alvin and the Chipmunks. I know we mentioned Garfield. Were there any others? Did we talk about Freakazoid?
I believe we did on part one or on the first
Yeah.
part episode. But if we did
Yeah,
Freakazoid was one of the, of course, the theme song draws you in automatically. To me,
yeah.
it was kind of like he's comparable to Beetlejuice. Like you can compare him straight up to Beetlejuice as far as like personality wise. Except he was more of like eccentric, while Beetlejuice is more disgusting. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking more of kind of that gothic kind of deal because the
Yeah,
one girl, yeah, she always wore black.
yeah, she
Yeah,
Wendy from the or Wednesday from the Addams Family.
yeah, that's kind of who she did remind me of. So,
Oh, speaking of
yeah.
family, they have a new movie coming out. The Addams Family 2. I forgot the exact name, but it's coming out next month.
You know what? Yeah, I think I've heard about that. And yeah, because they brought it back for another movie believe it or not. I haven't seen that one. I can't really say I was too, pressed to see it
I
and
was,
whatnot. Like,
especially
I
with
like,
the sequel after the first one did kind of poorly. I'm like, yeah. Sometimes you just gotta hang it up and give it a rest.
mm,
And
man, like that one.
living proof of that.
I don't even,
But
yeah,
so I like Floyd. That was one of the ones that
yeah.
stood out.
Man, that was another Spielberg one, believe it or not.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can believe it now. Now that I'm thinking about the animation style, it puts you in the mind of Animaniacs. So I can
Yeah,
even see them
they
doing.
did a crossover.
Wait, they did?
Yeah, they had an episode where Freakazoid came out like one of the Animaniacs out of the WB Water Tower. I think that was about it. I don't think they really played too much into it after that, but it was like the intro was special.
As long as I see them in the same screen, that's all I would need. The Animaniacs and Freakazoid in one shot, that's perfect.
Yeah,
That's pretty dope. Well,
it
shoot, I think
was.
we pretty much covered everything.
Well, I guess that wraps up the first episode of the Big Three with Cartoon Network. So, stay tuned for
Nickel,
part two. Yes, Nickelodeon. We're going to cover all the cartoons, but this is also a chance to get into live action as well. Get some actors out, get some different point of views on what we thought about, live action versus anime. So
and
we'll
I'm really,
definitely keep in
really
touch.
think it's one of my favorites. So
Oh yeah, they got so much content I cannot wait to get into. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode. I'm Ace Master J.
I'm Ricky Runnit. Thank y'all for tuning in.
All right, see.